Part 14. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 131. Zhangzhou University Administration Building. An impromptu meeting was held. Prior to this, Hu Qingming had already held a closed-door meeting with several other people, and was also waiting for the arrival of others. There were not many people at the scene, only about a dozen. Originally, according to the position classification, Hu Qingming, the dean, could only be regarded as the second in command of the college and was not qualified to sit here. But he is one of the parties involved and has the clearest understanding of the whole matter. It is really impossible to leave him in today's meeting. After the meeting started, Hu Qingming told the whole story in full. 3 months ago, Li Yuan scolded teachers and students at the entrance of the courtyard building. In the end, he even scolded Yang Shulin, the director of the Academic Affairs Office. The current investigation into that matter has made it very clear that it is not Li Yuan's problem, it is Gu Dongsheng who is spreading rumors. However, Anna Shen did not pursue the matter at the time. The college took it upon itself to give Anna Shen an explanation, and then a misunderstanding arose, which almost led to Li Yuan being expelled. Then today, Yang Shulin found various reasons not to stamp and sign Li Yuan, which eventually caused Li Yuan to get angry in the office. Whether these things are right or wrong is not important at this time. Because everything has two sides. If Li Yuan is just an ordinary student, then nothing will happen to Yang Shulin if he does this. Even if you misunderstood at first, is it right for you to take the initiative to curse someone this time? Since you did something wrong, shouldn't you be punished? In this world, there are double standards all the time. Time, place, and stance can all determine different directions for the same thing. As long as you can set standards, whatever you say is what it is. But now, when Hu Qingming saw that everyone was silent, he added, "Everyone, I want to reiterate that Li Yuan is a 19-year-old tens of billions fund manager. His current net worth is probably more than 2 billion. The Qingtian Mixed Small and Medium Cap Fund he manages is now the most famous fund in the country. His start is currently comparable to that of any big boss who is already famous in the world. If everyone is unwilling to express their opinions on this matter, then the consequences in the future will be unbearable for us." After he said this, someone immediately said, "Dean Hu, what are the consequences for us? No matter how powerful Li Yuan is, he is not one of ours. He is just one of our students, and because of these things, he has done harm to our school. His senses are very poor. We can save him, and we all agree after a few words in private. But we can't fulfill Dean Hu's previous requests." Hu Qingming's previous proposal was for the college to issue an announcement to apologize to Li Yuan, expel Yang Shulin, and criticize Zhang Yuling and others. At the same time, the school must also make an attitude and announce it simultaneously to the campus official website, and the school leaders should contact Li Yuan to gain Li Yuan's understanding. Obviously, no one wants their face to fall to the ground. So after Hu Qingming finished speaking, no one spoke. Hu Qingming said, "Now it seems that there is really no big consequence. At most, it is one less successful person who can donate to the school. Our school is short of funds, but how much can Li Yuan donate? If he is willing to donate several hundred million, we can completely agree to Dean Hu's request. But will he? Hu Qingming, he certainly won't, but what about the future? What if he is worth tens of billions? If the school fails to make a gesture at this time, he will not think highly of our school in the future. Does our school exist for a certain person? If we rely on alumni donations, our school cannot even pay teachers' salaries. No university has ever issued an apology announcement on the campus official website. Once such a thing occurs, we, as a 985 colleges, will become a laughingstock in the education sector and will have a huge negative impact on our enrollment in the coming year. We will not do such a thing without clear interests. Hu Qingming opened his mouth, and finally swallowed all the remaining words without being able to say them out. The school is willing to repair the relationship with Li Yuan, but it only goes so far and is unwilling to pay any price. Mouse, you're more than 20 million, Sister Ran will give it to your parents in the name of your part-time job. On the one hand, you have stolen all the family's savings before, which can be regarded as reassuring the old couple. On the other hand, it is also for Sister Ran establishes her authority. Li Yuan explained this matter to Lu Hao. In fact, the most important thing is to establish Zhou Ranran's authority. More than 20 million yuan is enough to beat anyone in the village to pieces. Zhou Ranran gave 20 million yuan to her childhood friend. Who dares to question her strength? No problem. Also, after I go back, I will return to filming. I will stay at home more and go see Sister Ran if I have nothing to do. Sister Ran's parents may not be easy to get along with because of their temperament. In a word, nothing can happen to Sister Ran. Understood. If they dare to be aggressive, I will take action. Li Yuan was just doing double insurance. After all, with Zhou Ranran's current financial resources, no one in the village would dare to touch her. Then go to bed and sleep in my room tonight. Okay. Lu Hao didn't ask Li Yuan where he was going to sleep. It's already obvious. After working for a while, Li Yuan went to Zhou Ranran's room. Zhou Ranran must be a little flustered. When the day comes to go back, she will inevitably feel nervous. Fortunately, Li Yuan had a way to relieve tension. Even though Li Yuan had said that the sound insulation effect here was very good, Zhou Ranran was still blushing and could only hold Li Yuan's arm to relieve his emotions. It was just after 1 o'clock in the morning, but Zhou Ranran still couldn't sleep. Although he was a little sleepy, he always had many things on his mind. Sister Ran, Mouse has been in love recently, do you know? Huh? Real or fake? Zhou Ranran's attention was quickly diverted. Really, he is also an internet celebrity. He looked for opportunities to meet Mozi several times, and the two of them did several programs together. Is it that Xiao fishing? Female fishermen are still rare, especially those wearing yoga pants. Zhou Ranran watches Lu Hao's videos every day and has naturally seen some related content. Well, that's her. Zhou Ranran frowned, she doesn't seem to be able to survive. You don't care whether she can live a good life or not. Aren't you afraid that the mice will suffer? What's the disadvantage? Rat's salary is tens of thousands of yuan. So far, he probably doesn't even have 100,000 yuan in hand. So, this is why you asked me to give the more than 20 million to his parents. Yes, when his parents get the money, it is inevitable that some will be lent out by relatives and friends, but it is harmless. Borrowing money can reveal a person's character, so it should be used as a circle screening. The mouse likes that girl now. After I got back, I told his parents not to give him any money in the future. Even if the company will let Lu Hao withdraw from his personal brand in a few months, the initiative is still in the hands of the company. To put it bluntly, Li Yuan can make the company make money or lose money. Whether Lu Hao can get income from his personal brand is entirely up to him. Anyway, Lu Hao is very young, so if he survives for a few years, he thinks there will be no problem at all. Then, do I need some money from my parents? You can give it if you want to. It doesn't matter if you don't want to give it. You have the final say anyway. No, I need you to tell me. Zhou Ranran himself had no confidence. Li Yuan smiled and said, well, I've learned a new move. You practice it with me. I'll give it to you when the time comes. Zhou Ranran. She must want to give some money to her parents. After all, the last time she met her father, she could see the family's dilemma and the harm she had caused to the family before. But Li Yuan agreed, and she would give him some peace of mind. Then I gave it after listening to your words. Yes, It's all my request, it has nothing to do with Sister Ran. Go and take a shower. The next day, Sunday, 9:30 in the morning. 3 cars were parked at the gate of the community. There is an H7 in the lead, a large truck in the middle, and a minivan at the end. The car Lu Hao drove in the front was also the car specially given to him by Li Yuan. In the middle was the driver driving, taking Zhou Ranran and Wang Qi with him. The last car was filled with things Zhou Ranran bought himself, as well as some specially customized by Li Yuan. For example, there are hundreds of pure gold zodiac pendants, each weighing about 20 grams, because Zhou Ranran will definitely treat guests to dinner after returning. According to the rules of the village, a running water mat must be set up, and everyone in the village who is supposed to come will come. In order to set off Zhou Ranran's identity, after paying the share of the money, the return gift could not be a pack of cigarettes or a bag of candy, but just a pure gold zodiac pendant. This thing is universal at all times and is rare for everyone. There are also various pastries, a set of sofas, a mattress, several sets of living supplies, and finally a notebook for Zhou Ranran. The main reason is that cars are expensive, H7 is cheap, costing 20,000 to 300,000 yuan, while Dalao is more expensive, costing almost 8 million yuan. The contents of the next car totaled less than 2 million. The pure gold zodiac pendant is a bit expensive, but the others are not very valuable. Mouse, send me a message when you get home. Oh, I see. Sister Ran. It's okay, Xiao Qi should pay more attention to Sister Ran and tell me immediately if anything happens, otherwise you won't be able to get your salary next month. If there was only Lu Hao today, Li Yuan might not really care. Unfortunately, besides Wang Qi, there are 2 other drivers. I know, Brother Yuan, you've told me dozens of times. Wang Qi was obviously more interested in luxury cars and got in immediately. The driver was already in place, and Lu Hao also went to the lead car. Li Yuan took the opportunity to pull Zhou Ranran's hand. Zhou Ranran did not refuse, but just kept looking at Wang Qi. You also have to study hard. It's okay if your work slows down a little. Yeah, I know. Then, he lay down in Zhou Ranran's ear and whispered, wait until I come home during the new year. As a result, Zhou Ranran quickly shook off his hand and got into the car. After Zhou Ranran got in the car, she was ready to say goodbye to Li Yuan again. When he turned around, he saw that Li Yuan had already turned around and went in. How she was feeling at that time? Li Yuan is a gentle person only when needed, and is usually extremely indifferent. It seems that all he cares about is making money. Li Yuan returned to the room and lay on the sofa for a while. It suddenly felt empty, and I was still a bit unaccustomed to it. The feeling of hugging Zhou Ranran was actually very addictive, but he didn't seem to have any withdrawal symptoms. Sitting in front of the computer and browsing some news, on the one hand, it stimulates some memories of myself, and on the other hand, it ensures a habit of receiving information. If he only lived in his memory, then after living these years in vain, his whole brain would be useless. You must maintain a learning mindset. Even if you remember a lot of information at a glance, you still have to digest it again. At about 10:30, Li Yuan received a message. I thought it was from Wen Yuxian, but it turned out to be from Hu Qingming. Li Yuan, I apologize to you on behalf of the college for what happened before. Yang Shulan needs a process and you will be expelled in a few days. I have also finished all your application forms for you. Do you have any at noon, empty? Shall I treat you to a meal alone? At this time, Li Yuan glanced at another message. The 2 messages were sent almost at the same time. Dean Hu, I'm sorry, I already have an appointment at noon. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 132. A text message from the college apologizing just wanted to turn the story over. Li Yuan was not someone who was easily satisfied. After all, he had collected interest from Zhang Yuling 3 times for one thing, and he still felt that it was a little bit worse. But he hasn't thought about changing schools yet. Damn it, if you leave, won't Zhangzhou University completely get rid of its psychological burden? He wouldn't leave on his own, and would even go to Zhangzhou University to increase his presence and see who was disgusting. So after he received Wen Yuxian's message, he agreed immediately. Half an hour later, he arrived at the entrance of the Suiwen restaurant of Zhangzhou University. Because there are so many people in Zhangzhou University, there are 4 restaurants. Suiwen restaurant is also called restaurant number 1, which is closest to the entrance of the university. The price of this restaurant is a little more expensive than other restaurants. They are basically famous snacks from outside. You can have a meal for more than 10 yuan, or you can have a meal for 30 or 50 yuan. The second floor is in the style of a restaurant. Sometimes you don't want to go out for a dinner party, so the second floor of Suiwen restaurant is the best choice. There is a set meal for students, and 200 yuan is enough for 4 or 5 people. It may not be very good, but the atmosphere is definitely sufficient. The disadvantage is that there is no alcohol supply unless you bring it secretly. The school supermarket does not sell beer anyway. Li Yuan was waiting at the door. Suddenly a small hand stretched out from his arm, and then another arm stretched out and hugged his entire arm. Turning around, he saw Wen Yuxian on the left, smiling and shouting in that sweet voice, "Senior." At this moment, Li Yuan clearly noticed some unkind glances around him. Many people in the school recognized Wen Yuxian. After all, Wen Yuxian was not a serious financial expert, and his reputation was quite widespread. As a man, it is impossible not to see beautiful women in short videos. Although the content of Wen Yuxian's videos is not ambiguous, her appearance is not. So wherever Wen Yuxian goes, he will be photographed after being discovered. This kind of thing can be regarded as expanding her Matrix account, and it will have no impact on her. But it has an impact on myself. In fact, he was really not familiar with Wen Yuxian. Her status as the eldest lady of Dongfang Lineng has nothing to do with her. In other aspects, she is a contracted internet celebrity of her own company. She does her job well and there is no need to please her. Schoolgirl, if you act like this, all the boys in the school will regard me as my enemy. From now on, when I meet your fanatical fans when I walk on campus, are you not allowed to slap me? When walking into the restaurant, Li Yuan said something. Wen Yuxian said with a smile, "Senior, is there anyone who praises others like you? Aren't you worried about your appearance? I'm not face blind either. It's okay. You will lose at least 10,000 followers tomorrow, and the company should deduct your money. Hee, if you can have a meal with your senior, you should be deducted some money." In fact, Wen Yuxian didn't take much money from the company at all. 2,000 in the first month, more fans in the second month, and I received 10,000 according to the contract. In the third month, I had money to receive advertising, and the number of fans increased again, so it is estimated to be around 150,000. But the problem is that she has received the first 2 months' salary now, and the third month is still early. The two found a seat and sat down. Wen Yuxian handed the menu to Li Yuan. "What do you want to eat, senior? You order first. I'm familiar with this place. You order first and I'll add more when the time comes." Oh. Wen Yuxian really had no experience in ordering food, so after getting the menu, she chose 2 at random. She didn't really come to eat anyway. She believed that Li Yuan definitely didn't really come to eat. "Senior, I'm ready." She ordered the 2 cheapest ones. After all, Li Yuan said he wanted to treat a guest. No matter how much money he had, don't forget to order the more expensive ones. What if he is a stingy character? The rich are always stingy, it's not like they don't have it. Li Yuan glanced at the menu and said, "Senior sister, I looked at the two dishes you ordered horizontally and vertically, and I only saw two words." Huh? Which two words? Beautiful. Senior, what does this mean? Li Yuan directly crossed out Wen Yuxian's two dishes. It was obvious that she ordered them blindly, boiled edamame and braised dried beans. While reselecting the dishes, he said, "Because there is nothing edible in those two dishes. If I want to eat, I have to rely on you." Wen Yuxian was stunned and took a few seconds to understand what Li Yuan meant. Those eyes were becoming more and more curious. So he asked, "Senior, he must have a girlfriend, right?" "I have a girlfriend who was also messed up by you, hello." Li Yuan called the waiter, and then handed the menu to him. While waiting for the food to be served, Wen Yuxian was like a curious baby. After all, it was his first time to meet Li Yuan, and he found that Li Yuan was completely different from what he had imagined. His behavior is neither cold nor indifferent, which makes you feel happy, but you can also clearly feel the distance. "Senior, my family is not from Zhangzhou, and I am not very familiar with this place. After the military training is over, can you take me for a walk?" "I don't think you want to go shopping." "Why?" "Because after the military training, you just want to sleep well for 2 days. Then we can wait until next weekend." "That's even worse. Did you know that the school has an early reading check-in card?" "Wen Yuxian, does the university still have a check-in card for early study?" Li Yuan smiled and said, "Yes, summer is at 6 o'clock every morning. You don't have to go to the classroom, but you have to go to check-in. No one can escape. Generally, you start from the dormitory and run to the south gate. There is a at the check-in point. After you finish checking in there, you have to go to the hospital building to check in again. Only when all 2 check-ins are recorded can you be considered to have participated in early reading. If you miss 1/5 of the early reading in the entire school year, you will be notified of criticism, and 1/3 will be determined. You will be placed on probation as soon as possible, if you miss 2/3 of the class." Li Yuan did not continue. Wen Yuxian was stunned. "What about winter?" 6:40. Then, Wen Yuxian stopped talking. What she was probably thinking at this time was, "I'm so stupid, really. I only know how hard it is to study early in high school, but I never thought that it would be like this in college. I'm so stupid, really." Obviously you can easily find relevant information online. In fact, Li Yuan also hated this matter deeply, and there was no one in the school who did not scold him. It was actually fine last year. I only had to run to the courtyard to punch in a card and it was done. As a result, the situation has intensified this year. It feels like the schools only go to their respective courtyards, and the distance is not very far. No matter which college it is, the distance between it and the student dormitories is less than 1,000 meters. In the end, some guy slapped his head and came up with a 2-stage check-in, first running 1,500 meters to the south gate, and then running to the courtyard building again. The School of Finance is considered good. The 2 sections add up to only 2,000 meters. Some schools add up to 3,000 meters. The interval between 2 check-ins cannot exceed half an hour, and it even comes with facial recognition. Every morning early in the morning, the small woods near the check-in point are filled with bicycles. Because how can a normal person run 2 kilometers as soon as he wakes up? Anyway, in this matter, there are few students who would not say that the school leaders are brain dead. "Senior, is there any way not to attend morning reading?" For Wen Yuxian, she was fed up with this feeling of being forced to restrain herself. She came to participate in independent enrollment because the senior year of high school was too stressful. She wasn't used to living within rules created by others, unless those rules were relatively broad, such as criminal law. No way, but, can you ride a bicycle? Yes. Then buy a bicycle, or you can pray for rain or snow every day, because in these two weather conditions, you don't have to run for morning reading. Well, if you can study with your seniors and do morning reading, it won't be so scary anymore when you think about it. This was the psychological comfort Wen Yuxian gave herself. Moreover, Li Yuan also has to run for morning reading. Will he be able to sit on the back of his bicycle by then? Thinking of this, she immediately said, "Senior, I suddenly remembered that I am not very good at riding a bicycle. Can you please take me for a ride?" This, I'm afraid it won't work. Is the senior going to pick up his girlfriend? No, I don't have to go to morning classes, and I don't have to go to class. I just need to take the exam. Wen Yuxian. Soon, the food was served. Wen Yuxian was completely led astray. Originally, she wanted to talk to Li Yuan about stock trading today. She thought she had a good grasp of the market. During the 2 years when the market was at its worst, her stock tripled. However, after seeing the data of Qingtian mixed small and medium caps, she realized how big the gap was between herself and Li Yuan, and wanted to learn from Li Yuan's thinking. In her opinion, stock trading is just like life. Every time you buy, you are betting on the future. There are many changes in the process, and you may go the wrong way if you are not careful. She has been exposed to many things and found that the stock market is the most complicated, full of intrigues and evil. It wasn't until after the meal was finished and Li Yuan paid and left that she came back to her senses. The official business hadn't been discussed yet. Have to wait again. Who knows how long it will take next time? Could he have done it on purpose? Early this morning, Anna Shen went home. The main reason is that she is already a senior, and people in the dormitory keep asking her about her new movie. Well, at the beginning of the filming of that movie, my father withdrew the funding, and the result can be imagined. Of course, the reason for coming back this time was not only to escape that environment, but also because of what my father said yesterday. Obviously before, he strongly demanded that he and Li Yuan repair their relationship, and even said that he should be pregnant. However, his tone suddenly changed and became another extreme. After arriving home, she saw her father sitting on the sofa in the living room reading a book. When he saw Anna Shen coming back, he asked, "Why are you back today?" Anna Shen said, "Dad, I don't quite understand what you said yesterday, and I found that Li Yuan still cares about Linlin. There is still a good chance that I can repair our relationship with him, so." Shen Tianfu put down the book, and Anna Shen saw it. It was a history of the Ming dynasty. You can repair the relationship, but not now. You don't have to put your chips on someone who is doomed to fail. Destined to fail. Anna Shen has been paying attention to all the information about Li Yuan during this period. No matter where you look at it, it seems like he has nothing to do with failure, right? In just a few months, he achieved what his father had achieved in decades. Yes, he is doomed. Because he doesn't have a single friend. As soon as Shen Tianfu said this, Anna Shen immediately understood. Li Yuan was sniped. But how did a person who was targeted maintain high growth in the net value of his fund for 2 consecutive weeks? She said tentatively, "Dad, Qingtian capital seems to be very strong recently." Shen Tianfu did not deny it. After all, he lost to Li Yuan in the first confrontation. If Lianying technology reaches the limit again tomorrow, Lu Shangyuan will go crazy. After that, he would lose more than 200 million at each daily limit. But he still dared to say that Li Yuan would definitely lose. Confidence does not come from Tianchuan shares. Tianchuan shares can only be regarded as the second confrontation between the two sides. Even if Li Yuan eats 1 billion, Li Yuan will not be familiar with it. At most, the two sides will draw. He also knew that something was wrong with the contact person, which meant that Li Yuan was aware of the danger. But it's too late now. After opening higher tomorrow, they will smash the market. This time it's not securities lending, but real chips. As long as you can sell it, you'll make a profit. The more they sell, the greater Li Yuan's financial losses will be. That kind of market will not give Li Yuan a chance to enter the market in the short term. Their average cost is much lower than that of Li Yuan. They opened up more than a dozen points of space last week, which is not enough for Li Yuan to withdraw. He will definitely hesitate. Someone as crazy as him will definitely not admit defeat. What you use is his momentum of not giving up. With this, you can make him sink deeper and deeper. If Li Yuan can be forced to use the fueling tactic, it will be an unprecedented success. However, it was good to be able to survive with Li Yuan's arm broken. He believed that Li Yuan could still react. After all, the spy had been exposed, and both sides had essentially revealed their cards. He has a lot of chips in his hand, and the chips are cheap. He wants to break his head, but he doesn't know how he will lose this time. There will be no funds to save him, because the major shareholders of Tianchuan shares have no money, and the small shareholders are all capital, and they have already cashed out and left as soon as the market opened. He said to Anna Shen, "What's the use of momentum? No matter how strong it is, can it be stronger than the Ming dynasty?" He now looks as powerful as the founding of the Ming dynasty. In fact, he is not far behind Chongjin's situation. Anna Shen has also read some history and knows what her father means. The general idea is that when everyone is against Li Yuan, no matter how powerful Li Yuan is, he will not be able to make any waves. In the end, he has no choice but to hang himself in Meishan. Of course, it doesn't matter here whether Chongzhen is a faint king or a wise king. What matters is his situation, what matters is his final result. Dad, he doesn't seem to have done anything, right? Anna Shen didn't know why Li Yuan suddenly offended so many people. He did it. Almost all of his funds were obtained from the internet. There is not much increase in the national fund share. Even if there is, it cannot compare with the increase in the entire industry, so the profit is very limited. Qingtian Capital itself earns 1 billion a year, and it should also let other channels earn 300 million. In this way, everyone eats from the same pot, and no one will easily lose their job. But he swallowed up the channel's 300 million yuan, and started killing his colleagues. How long can he survive in such a situation? This is the reason why Shen Tianfu believes that Li Yuan will definitely lose. Even if Tianchuan shares didn't make him lose much money, even if he could still absorb funds by relying on his advantages on the internet. But he has stolen too many people's food, and everyone will kill him at all costs. The bigger he gets, the faster he dies. Just like the marine ecology, only if the whale Li Yuan dies can thousands of small fish eat their fill. Therefore, this process must be endless, either Li Yuan dies or all of them die. Is it more likely that Li Yuan will die, or those who work as a channel? It's obviously the former. The latter represents not only an industry, but also the rules by which the entire world operates. To put it harshly, unless Li Yuan has the ability to subvert the entire industry, he will definitely lose. And those rules are the way of heaven. Li Yuan couldn't go against the will of heaven. Anna Shen believed that since her father said so confidently, he must have predicted the outcome. Then I won't have any contact with him. Shen Tianfu waved his hand, "No need to contact us. It won't be long before he may beg to meet us and beg to repair the relationship with you." Anna Shen quickly returned to her room. She did not have confidence in what her father said. Even if Li Yuan fails, he will not ask for help. In the beginning, when he was just a poor student at school, he never lowered his head when facing himself. No matter how poor you are in the future, it will not be worse than before. If you think about it carefully, Li Yuan is really very strong. Under the encirclement and suppression of so many forces, it can still carve out a world and maintain rapid growth for 2 weeks. He opened several fund subscription platforms, and there was no news about Qingtian Mixed Small and Medium Caps on each list. Obviously Qingtian Mixed Small and Medium Caps has the strongest upward trend, but if its monthly net worth increases by 16 points, it will rank first. Li Yuan's net worth has increased by more than 50 points in half a month. It doesn't even make the list. Regardless of the platform, they are nowhere to be found. Even on some small platforms, the code for Qingtian Mixed Small and Medium Caps cannot be found at all. It is either blocked or removed from the shelves. Only some large platforms can be searched. After all, large platforms still want to save face. If the list is inaccurate, you can use technical errors to deal with it. Block other people's codes and search fields, but you can't use this excuse. She was deeply touched by Li Yuan's arrogance. She and him were just some inconsequential misunderstandings, and the loss she suffered was even greater. As a result, Li Yuan did not give him a chance to repair the relationship. Yesterday, I was beside Xu Yanlin. Whenever he looked at me, I would go over and talk to her. He didn't know if he was too sharp, no one would be willing to get close to him. No matter where in the world, where can you avoid the world? There is no mutual benefit between capitals. It's a shame, we could have been friends. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 133. Chapter 133. Although he is not a biological brother, he has kissed. The photo of Wen Yuxian holding Li Yuan's arm inevitably spread on the internet. In the photo, Li Yuan appears relatively calm, but Wen Yuxian's eyes full of admiration are about to thicken. For many people, it feels like they are experiencing the pain of a broken love. Some voices began to appear in her comment area. That is to say, you cannot post pictures in the comment area for the time being, otherwise those photos would have been flying all over the place. The fans of Wen Yuxian and Li Yuan are not very similar. Most of Li Yuan's fans are middle-aged people. How many of Wen Yuxian's fans are really interested in finance? Just as Li Yuan expected, Wen Yuxian began to lose fans. Powder is falling off when suctioning powder at high speed, which means that the actual powder falling speed is higher than what is seen on the surface. Song Jiajia was anxious. I sent a message to Wen Yuxian, but Wen Yuxian didn't reply at all. In the end, I had no choice but to give it to Li Yuanfa. Junior, even if you really want to fall in love with an internet celebrity who has signed a contract with the company, can you keep a low profile? Wen Yuxian is our number one now, and neither Lu Hao nor Gu Dongsheng can match the cash flow. When Li Yuan saw this information, he really didn't want to have too many demands on employees who didn't get paid. He patiently explained, "Senior, don't worry too much. Wen Yuxian's current number of fans is already at the ceiling of the same genre. Even if it goes up, the potential is very limited. Maybe by hyping up love, it can reach a higher level." Song Jiajia, I have never seen a good-looking internet celebrity who can gain fans after falling in love. Stars in the entertainment industry have such high fan viscosity that they dare not be photographed in love. Those who are photographed in love, which one is not without exception, there are a large number of followers. By the way, I saw some strange statements in the comment area, saying that Wen Yuxian is a woman of some kind of god. What do you mean? Arrange the island. Li Yuan's real reputation has gradually declined. Because I haven't posted videos for a long time, and my fans are not very active. The Qingtian Mixed Small and Medium Caps need a little more heat now. Wen Yuxian's popularity is much higher than that of his own, and it would also be good for Qingtian Capital to engage in speculation. Even if Wen Yuxian buys his own fund, there will be no problem. On the contrary, it will be a kind of support for his own products. If you buy anything else, there is a certain risk. But I'm not married, so don't let anyone catch you by your pigtails. The impact will be very small. After getting married, they are persons acting in concert. At the same time, the first class meeting of grade 17 finance class 1 is being held. Zhang Yuling arranged for all students to come on stage to introduce themselves, and it was Wen Yuxian who came on stage at this time. Xu Yanlin's eyes were hostile. 2 hours ago, someone in the class had posted intimate photos of Wen Yuxian and Li Yuan together. She is jealous. Jealous that Wen Yuxian is prettier than her. And she discovered a truth that was hard to accept. Li Yuan likes people like Wen Yuxian, but he will never become like this. At this time, a boy in the class asked, Wen Yuxian, are you really in love with Yuan Shen? Boys do like goddesses like Wen Yuxian, Bai Yueguang, and Xu Yanlin, who are suitable to be treasure girls. When Wen Yuxian heard this, she lowered her head slightly in embarrassment. We are dating, right? Oh carrot. Li Yuan's identity has been known to the whole class through the help of someone in the class who knows the inside story. The currently popular 10 billion fund manager is 19 years old. And he is still a sophomore student at Zhangzhou University. Then can you share with us the daily life of Togamai? I am a big fan of Togamai. Xu Yanlin lowered her head. Every second this process lasted was like pricking her heart more. But Zhang Yuling was the first to stop looking at it. He took the initiative and said, these private matters are not suitable for communication in class meetings. Also, Zhuji, if you want to know about Li Yuan, then study hard, because Li Yuan is also a student in our class, but he did not come today. What? Teacher Zhang, is it true or false? The eyes of the whole class, both men and women, widened. This is a boss who is said to be worth billions, and he is actually a classmate with them? Of course it's true. If you want to see him, just study hard. Zhang Yuling found that taking Li Yuan out would save him a lot of trouble. What freshmen fear most is not following the rules. There are conflicts in some classes and dormitories that cannot be reconciled, and there are also fights over things like running for class committee. In short, in the first year of freshman, the pressure on the class teacher is also great. Things got much better later on. During my sophomore and junior years, I almost couldn't even see my class teacher. Xu Yanlin, it's time to take care of yourself. Zhang Yuling didn't want to waste too much time on the topic of Li Yuan. She is definitely not jealous of the students. As Wen Yuxian stepped down and Xu Yanlin walked onto the podium, the boys fell silent instantly. It's different from the one we faced Wen Yuxian just now, because boys are self-aware, and this kind of goddess can only be a classmate. However, Xu Yanlin has a somewhat shy temperament and no sharp aura about her. She feels like the sister next door. Who can have no idea? Hello, classmates, my name is Xu Yanlin. She wrote her name on the blackboard behind. I am from Zhangzhou. If you are not familiar with Zhangzhou, you can ask me. I hope that during the 4 years of college, I can become good friends with you, learn together, and make progress together. Do you have any questions to ask? Xu Yanlin is still very interested in the new learning atmosphere. Since she completely broke up with her family, she feels that there are fewer and fewer constraints on her body. She is eager to make friends with people. The girls didn't have much to ask. After all, 5 girls could theoretically create 16 small groups. On the contrary, it was a boy who suddenly shouted, "Classmate Xu, do you have a boyfriend?" This question brought out the thoughts of all the boys in the class. Xu Yanlin didn't know how to answer. But when he thought of Wen Yuxian, he immediately raised his head and said with a smile, "Sorry, I already have a boyfriend." When the girls heard this, some of them snickered. After all, most girls don't want to be compared, especially with someone they can't compare to. Xu Yanlin's appearance is indeed not as good as Wen Yuxian's, but she is still a peerless existence. Figure. On the surface, all the girls are saying that this kind of figure doesn't look good in clothes, but in fact, who doesn't envy her? They can find many reasons for their piece. Even to forcefully change the aesthetics of a group of people. It can be seen from the entertainment industry that when ordinary actresses become popular, it is actually when the aesthetics are deliberately changed. They will say, "You are so dashing, you are so elegant, you look good in clothes, you are so beautiful." In fact, isn't it just to find a sense of identity? How can someone find a body that is not even interested in being photographed beautiful? Except for those whose waist and legs are truly incredible. After all, people's taste cannot be too vulgar. The boys' heartbroken voices were silent, but emotional. Xu Yanlin stood awkwardly on the podium for more than 10 seconds before walking down. Zhang Yuling finally walked up to the podium and said, "Now that everyone has gotten to know each other, the next step is the class committee election. Students who have ideas can come on stage to state their campaign speeches. At that time, we will choose by voting. Show your own positivity and optimism, and you will get more recognition." At the end of the sentence, Zhang Yuling had a faint smile on his face. In fact, Zhang Yuling was always the most special presence in the room. Because of his status as the head teacher, the boy would not think about other aspects for a while. But that smile just now seemed to dissolve all the barriers at once, allowing emotions to break through the thick ice. The boy in the back row suddenly said something. "Teacher Zhang, do you have a boyfriend?" Zhang Yuling's expression suddenly turned cold and he stared at the boy who spoke. "Zuji, it's you again." Li Yuan received a call from his mother. On the phone, my mother was dictating the scene after Zhou Ranran returned to the village. In words, it is called envy. By the way, there is also Lu Hao, who is now well off, and Ranran is very kind to him. Didn't you live with Lu Hao before? Why don't you get along with Ranran? Ah. I'm busy studying, so I don't have much time. Sigh, our family doesn't have that kind of fate. Every year, we go to blind Cheng Cheng to tell him that our family doesn't have that kind of wealth. Now Lu Hao heard that it costs tens of thousands a month. Ranran brings home a whole truckload of things. The road is all stained. Mom, is it as exaggerated as you said? Why not? Your father broke his waist due to exhaustion. He only earns 20,000 yuan a month, which is not enough to work every day. Lu Hao's 2 months now are worth as much as your father's work for a year, let alone Ranran. He treats you like a biological brother, and I don't know how many blessings he will enjoy in the future. Tell me, why didn't you let Ranran treat you as a biological brother? Well, although he didn't regard him as his biological brother, she had kissed him. Mom, don't be envious of me. Sister Ran also told me that she will let me go home and work with her for a month during the Chinese New Year. You let Dad rest, and then I will give you all the money I earn. Li Yuan is not stable yet, so he doesn't want to tell his parents. After all, once the news spreads, everyone in your hometown, familiar or unfamiliar, will definitely find ways to fight the autumn wind. My parents can't handle that kind of scene, and I don't have the energy to deal with it. Forget it, that's what I said. You should focus on studying. After a hard vacation, just play at home. Your father can still work for a few more years. If you can find a girlfriend to take home, that's enough. Okay, I'll try to bring a girlfriend back during the Chinese New Year. Real. This cannot be false. Then I have to talk to your father and let him take on 2 more jobs. Li Yuan suddenly felt like he shot himself in the foot. Mom, there's no need for this, right? Don't tire out my dad. He volunteered. You don't know whether he did it voluntarily or not. Li Yuan could only send a text message to Zhou Ranran, asking her to find an excuse to stuff tens of thousands of dollars into his family. The old couple are the kind of people who get anxious when they don't see any income. It doesn't mean that the family really has no money. There are several certificates of deposit worth tens of thousands of dollars at home. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 134. Monday came quickly. Li Yuan got up at 8 o'clock and came to the company. This weekend, the company is not calm either. Yu has cooperated with the investigation several times, but there is no result yet. However, based on the current evidence, it is impossible for the trader to come out safely. The current investigation stage is to see how deep the mud can be pulled out. Li Yuan was in the office and checked the company's situation. The main issue is funding. At present, the total size of Kingtian's mixed small and medium-sized caps has reached 18.6 billion. The subscription funds are 14.1 billion, plus the company's 1 billion, for a total of 15.1 billion. In 10 trading days, the profit captured in the market was 3.5 billion. Although the net worth has increased by more than 50 points, it was mainly due to the low initial capital. Before the purchase exceeded 10 billion, the net worth had already increased by 26 points. The share of funds subscribed last Friday, Saturday, and Sunday will also be confirmed today, amounting to 1.6 billion. The total scale exceeded 20 billion. Even if we only calculate based on the current data, the management fee is 500 million, and on average over more than 200 trading days, the company will make a net profit of more than 2 million every day. Of course, the profit must be more than this. Li Yuan's 1 billion funds were also invested. From the former retail investors to institutions, the 1 billion earned belongs to the company's property and also belongs to him personally. Currently, the number of stocks he holds has reached 35, and he feels that he has not yet reached his limit. Basically, it only takes 2 hours a day to determine the market situation for the day. If you are not trading small and medium cap stocks, you are trading large cap stocks. 30 or 50 stocks can accommodate more than 60 billion in funds. He has learned his limits, and after a maximum of 2 weeks, he will no longer be able to accept large amounts of money. There is also a need to further limit the subscription amount. His goal has been achieved. At least now more than 30,000 investors have been added every day. In Qingtian mixed small and medium caps, the per capita holdings are only more than 70,000, which is much lower than other tens of billions of funds. Close to 300,000 Christians. It is still a little short of those 50 to 60 billion or even 70 to 80 billion funds, but it has already achieved Li Yuan's first stage goal. At 9 o'clock, he appeared at the door of the trading room on time. All employees are already in place, and the number has been supplemented today. In addition, the company has several traders on standby at any time. Li Yuan is not afraid of a few more traders, because this is an A-share company with the most rules. Although those black hands have manipulated the market for many years and manipulated retail investors, their ability to resist risks has increased by more than 10 times. If he only had 1 billion of his own capital, he would have almost no capital left after being cheated a few times. And now that he has more funds as a hedge, it doesn't hurt to fail once or twice. Compared with last Friday, all employees today are obviously much more serious. After all, if something goes wrong, someone will be arrested. It was the first time for all of them to encounter this kind of thing in their lives. Li Yuan didn't say anything, just pretended that nothing happened. The collective bidding stage represents the official start of today's battle. Tianchuan shares directly check the button and liquidate the positions of 500 million yuan at a time. Wanji Technology bids to try to ignite the fire. He started doing collective bidding now, because most of the market prices are concentrated in the morning. If you don't participate in the morning, there will be almost no opportunities in the afternoon. Next, he will smash Tianchuan shares hard. In order not to affect the net worth, he can only strive to make more profits. Usually he starts doing it through collective bidding, and he screens it several times before making up his mind. After several days of observation and review, he has deduced the market countless times in his mind. There is no continuous market trend. What he does is just giving away food. Of course, the focus is still on Tianchuan shares. With the official opening of trading, Tianchuan shares were directly hit by a large order of 480 million, hitting the limit. Funds began to come in one after another, and Li Yuan could also see that his chips were being eaten up bit by bit. If you have the ability, take all the 500 million and see if the funds inside can get out of the market. Anyway, selling 500 million chips today is not a loss for him. Being able to escape from the hot pit of Tianchuan shares and walk away with profits is what countless people dream of. When he was sorting out the internal funds of Tianchuan shares, he had already washed away his own costs through sharp rises and falls. Currently, all of his 500 million positions are made from previous profits. Speaking of which, I would also like to thank my enemy for following him here tirelessly and helping him stabilize billions of chips, otherwise he really wouldn't be able to make so much money. Although calling the police on Friday made his enemies more cautious, Li Yuan believed that they could not overcome the weaknesses of human nature. That is greed. Tianchuan shares hit the daily limit last Friday, and they wanted to get a little premium before selling. Maybe a few points of premium can earn them hundreds of millions more. But Li Yuan didn't want to take advantage of the premium, and even the opportunity he could have made a little more money was given up. He just wants to kill those guys in Tianchuan shares. Whoever strikes first will have the upper hand. They are greedy for today's premium, so naturally they have no chance to escape. Either they spend hundreds of millions or even billions more to collect Li Yuan's chips, leave Li Yuan behind, play on their own, and make a move to retreat. Or they can only watch as Li Yuan lets their account turn green. At around 10 o'clock, the transaction volume of Tianchuan shares was 160 million, which was a decrease compared with usual times. This also means that Li Yuan's chips have been eaten up by 160 million. It seems that there is a chance to pry open the lower limit, but in fact there are other funds arranging orders behind Li Yuan. They want to get out. So Li Yuan began to arrange for manpower to remove some of the orders and then fill them in. Put other funds in front and let those funds go out first. He is not in a hurry to go out, he still needs chips to smash the market. At the same time, his position in Lianying Technology reached its daily limit again. After 8 consecutive games, the original capital of 500 million has now become 1 billion. As for how much the enemy lost on the short order? You have to pay 80% anyway, right? There is currently no disagreement among the funds inside, and they are unanimously long, so the cost of closing the market is very low. Even after 8 consecutive trading days, the daily trading volume still does not exceed 16 million. Coupled with the help of short funds in the middle, for the board of directors of Lianying Technology, as long as they do not sell chips aggressively, the market will automatically close. The shareholders of Lianying Technology have all increased their holdings recently. As long as they exceed 5%, they will not be able to reduce their positions in the near future. Naturally, small shareholders will look at the faces of major shareholders and will not dare to reduce their positions easily. This is an unsolvable situation. Li Yuan didn't even know how the other party got to this point. Just use this little method to do something for yourself. If he opens a short order, he will definitely pay close attention to the trend of chips on the market. When he finds that the chips have a tendency to concentrate or there are possible risks, he will definitely do a good job in risk hedging. No matter how bad it is, it would be better to buy low and hold some chips in hand than now. It's equivalent to using your own money to push the price up, and the more you push it up, the more you will lose for short orders. He dug into the sewer and dug it into his buttocks. Even if the shareholders of Lianying Technology did not take action at the beginning, Li Yuan had a way to engage them and lock them up with a large amount of deposits. Sometimes the time cost of capital is more uncomfortable than losing money. He only needs to increase his position to buy and directly raise his sign. After raising the sign, it is equivalent to locking a part of the current stocks, and a lot of funds will move in and rush in to pull the market. He can even increase his holdings every day, with the attitude of wanting to control Lianying Technology, and the funds he dares to come in will be even more. He can make no money or even lose hundreds of millions. It can also lock up the opponent's funds and require continuous margin calls. The outcome of the capital game is not simply based on profit or loss. As long as the opponent loses more than him, he will win. Li Yuan can operate 30 or 50 stocks a day, but they can't. If they had this ability, they would not play such damaging tricks and just kill Li Yuan. Shen Tianfu looked at the board and was completely confused. He didn't know who smashed it, but it wasn't one of his own. Because they are planning to eat a few more points before smashing the plate. If it was Li Yuan who smashed the plate, then is he crazy? Doesn't he also have hundreds of millions of funds in it? It may even reach 1 billion in funds. With such a smash, wouldn't he himself lose hundreds of millions? What is he planning? Kill 1,000 enemies and suffer 800 losses? How does he know how many chips we have in it? Isn't he afraid of killing 800 enemies and losing 1,000? When Shen Tianfu and the others entered the venue, there was already very little movement. Even if Li Yuan knew that there was a traitor in the company, how could he dare to be sure that his own funds would attack him in Tianchuan shares? If you are not sure, why should you smash the market? The transactions on the market have been enlarging, which means that other funds have been entering the market. But the funds for smashing the market are more. Originally there were only more than 400 million closed orders, but now the transaction volume has reached 200 million, and the closed orders have turned into 500 million. They haven't lost money yet, but they've only made a paper profit. After the market changes, all the money is just a bunch of numbers. If it cannot be sold, it is worse than waste paper. After all, waste paper can be used to go to the toilet. What can you do with a bunch of numbers now? Not only that, Lianying Technology has reached its daily limit again today. In other words, Lu Shangyuan's side is now unable to protect itself, and he even has no funds to take care of this side. Tianfu Capital does not have much funds to begin with, and because of the huge consumption of shares in Tiankai, he must earn back part of it elsewhere, otherwise he will not be able to account for it this year. Not to mention making money back now, I'm afraid I'm going to have to pay back some money. Every second of today was torture for Shen Tianfu. Completely unable to move. Even under the flexible rules of private equity, he didn't know what to do. I just hope that other funds can pry open the lower limit, at least to ensure that the chips in my hand are valuable first. If he sells for a higher price and makes a little more than Li Yuan, he will consider it a win. At 2:30 in the afternoon, a sum of money suddenly entered the market and ate up a total of 200 million yuan in orders. Shen Tianfu regained his energy and entered the market with large funds, which represented a good reversal of the situation. But the other party seemed to be trembling and there was no follow-up. Today, the trading volume of Tianchuan shares has exceeded 600 million, but the limit has not been opened. The power of the short seller is so strong that he doesn't even know where he got so many chips. He also wanted to run, but he didn't dare to place an order. Adding another few hundred million to the market will make the market even more desperate, and no funds will dare to come in. Boil and endure. Finally waited until 3 p.m. to close. An exciting scene for Shen Tianfu appeared. Tianchuan shares fell to the limit and orders were closed, and someone bought 300 million in one go. In the bidding stage of 3 minutes at the end of the trading day. There are only tens of millions left before the seesaw. Although today is a frustrating day, tomorrow is definitely a bright future. There's no way these two big orders were just for fun, right? The transaction volume of Tianchuan shares today exceeded 1 billion. Even if Li Yuan made the mistake, all his chips today would be eaten up, and he would not be able to continue to make mistakes tomorrow. But he was still a little unwilling to let Li Yuan cut off his arm and run away. You're getting an advantage. Li Yuan's vigilance was really too high and he failed to block him in Tianchuan shares. It is estimated that he did not lose much money and even made a small profit of 10 to 20 million. After the market closed, the group finally had time to have a small meeting. The monitoring during the opening period was too strict. A few words conveyed by the intermediary would not be effective at all. It was very difficult to communicate and it was easy to fall into the trap. It was much better after closing. They can even communicate face to face. As long as there is no evidence, who knows what they said? Moreover, they have already developed their own set of communication skills. Even if someone is recording, it is impossible to capture the evidence. These are the unspoken rules of private equity. Looking around the world, which private equity firm dares to say that he is innocent? Oh, you are actually innocent? Don't you want your life? Shen Tianfu went to a dinner party. I went there after 5 o'clock and came back after 8 o'clock. All the information you need has arrived. Lu Shangyuan went directly to talk to Lianying Technology and wanted to get some of the shares back. Generally listed companies will not offend capital and are willing to provide them with some convenience. However, the major shareholder said that he had increased his holdings, and even if he set aside some shares, Lu Shangyuan would not be able to trade them for the time being. The same is true for shareholders holding more than 5% of the shares, and their bargaining chips are limited. Shareholders with a shareholding ratio of less than 5% heard that Lu Shangyuan was only willing to pay a premium of 20%, so they refused without thinking. In particular, Lu Shangyuan wants more and needs to clear out the chips in the hands of several shareholders. If he needs it so much, he can go to the secondary market to collect it himself. Oh, you can't receive it? Then only give a 20% premium. I wonder if the so-called premium price will become parity in 2 days? Since Lu Shangyuan needs chips, Lianying Technology will continue to rise. Anyway, no one can break the game, so no one can break the game. Therefore, Lu Shangyuan has no chance to help. It is still unclear whether he can survive this wave. As for Tianchuan shares, at 2:30 in the afternoon, the 200 million in funds turned out to be their own. The purpose was to attract other funds to enter the market, but it turned out that after 200 million was thrown in, there was no splash at all. The only good news is that the 300 million that was bid at the end of the day was not theirs, it was external funds. It depends on tomorrow. Let's work together to promote the market tomorrow, and everyone will get out of their trap. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 135. Chapter 135. A piece of good news, a piece of bad news. Shen Tianfu calculated that the Tianchuan shares he had borrowed were worth 3 billion. Based on today's price limit, he still made a profit of more than 10 points. Because the cost of borrowing was very low, it would be easy to put those stocks in the hands of others. Can't sell. 3 billion. If it doesn't work, if it is smashed hard, it is possible to make 8-10 centimeter large holes. Lending it to them at a discount can be said to be a good choice. In addition, they themselves have bought nearly 1 billion, and they are currently making no profit or losing any money. In other words, they have a total of 4 billion worth of chips. In fact, as long as they can open higher today, they will definitely be able to sell half of the shares near the daily limit, and they will have a sure chance of winning. After all, during the closing stage last Friday, the trading volume was 3 billion. But not even a penny was sold, but 200 million was put into it. If there is a market trend tomorrow, there will be a start. At first, I wanted to bury Li Yuan thoroughly and nail the coffin board tightly. As a result, the chips have now become a burden to them. They can't afford even one more limit drop. Because if there is another limit drop, the profits from the stocks borrowed at a discount will be gone. With 4 billion chips, you can't even make a floating profit. How much will you lose in the end? At first, they didn't think they had a lot of chips, because even if Tianchuan shares were pressed to the limit today, there were still billions of hands changing hands. As long as you can control the market well, 4 billion is actually very easy to sell. The private equity loans lent to them are incapable of controlling the market, and they will cause an avalanche if they hit it. They were all blind at the beginning. Tianchuan shares opened as soon as they saw the fourth board. They rushed in and were buried. As far as private equity is concerned, Tianfu Capital is not considered small scale, with a lot of private equity worth 2 to 3 billion. These loans were all borrowed from 10 or 20 private equity firms across the country. This kind of transaction is not illegal and is equivalent to buying and selling. It's just that you don't have to pay money for the time being. You have to pay it sooner or later. Looking at the net worth of Qingtian mixed small and medium caps, Shen Tianfu's eyes turned redder. 1.6103, add 4.08%. How could there be a 4-point increase in net worth even though Tianchuan Holdings had so much loss today? This fund has only been open for 11 trading days, and its net value has already increased by 61 points. He wished he had bought all of Tianfu Capital's money into Li Yuan's fund from the beginning. If he earns 61 points lying down, if he doesn't earn a penny in the next 3 years, those financial backers won't do anything to him. He even doubted whether his group could kill Li Yuan. Lu Shangyuan is dead and only needs one stock. And their current situation is not good, and they also only use one stock. When Shen Tianfu thought of this, he was suddenly shocked. A stock? He opened the holdings of Qingtian mixed small and medium caps, and Tianchuan shares were so obvious. Because only Tianchuan shares have a market value of more than 30 billion, and the market value of the tradable stock market is as high as 12 billion. Other stocks are basically around 10 billion, and there are also many stocks worth 5 to 6 billion. Basically, the major shareholders will not sell these stocks, and their circulating value is not small on the surface. In fact, the circulating value is basically around 2 to 3 billion, and there is no room for big funds to operate. You can do market trading there with a few 100 million, and if you have a little more capital, you can start trading. It's so suitable. Tianchuan shares are really suitable for big capital games. There are more than 30 billion plates with a circulation value of 12 billion. Even if 1.5 billion funds are used, accounting for 13% of the circulating value, there will be no sign. Compared with the circulation value, a 13% share already has a high ability to control the market. This is the perfect place. So when they got Li Yuan to join Tianchuan shares, they followed in immediately without much thought. He has never been able to understand why Li Yuan smashed the market and why he was so sure that he was in Tianchuan shares. Only now did I realize that Li Yuan had been plotting him to death from beginning to end. Because Li Yuan has other positions, there is no way to snipe, and Li Yuan will discover any small movements. Even if the sniper attack is successful, it will cause hundreds of millions of losses to Li Yuan, not even breaking the skin. Only Tianchuan Co., Limited has the meaning to snipe him, and as long as the sniper is successful according to the script, Li Yuan will lose at least 3 to 5 billion. Only then could he barely hurt Li Yuan. Therefore, Li Yuan can be sure that his side must have entered the market. Is this why he dared to smash the plate? No. Maybe it wasn't Li Yuan who smashed the market during the day. If it wasn't Li Yuan, it meant that all this was not planned in advance. Otherwise, how could Li Yuan himself be buried in it? But if it weren't for Li Yuan, it means that Li Yuan might still have 1 billion chips in his hand. Will he continue to smash the market today? It's past 12 o'clock. He didn't know which result he should admit. Should he admit that Li Yuan had planned it long ago and let them fall into the trap willingly, or should he admit that it was still not optimistic during the day? Even if 300 million yuan enters the market at the end of the day, it will be difficult to deal with the 1 billion chips in Li Yuan's hand. One is admitting that he is stupid, and the other is facing losing money. Although he couldn't change the reality, he still wanted to seek some psychological comfort. As a result, even this little bit of psychological comfort was not given. Sleepless night. He couldn't sleep no matter what. I came to the company with red eyes, waiting for the opening of business today. I want money. He figured it out. As long as the limit does not fall today, as long as there is still a chance to save today's market, as long as their 4 billion can be recovered intact in the next month's capital operation, he is willing to admit that he was tricked by Li Yuan. Because this time, he can't afford to pay. There are only 2 minutes left before the official opening. The opening price of Tianchuan shares has been set. The market opened at the limit, but the closing chips were only a mere 2 million. He breathed a sigh of relief. More than 2 million means that Li Yuan will not smash it? If you want to pry it open, you can do it casually, and then it depends on each person's technique. The more delicate the technique, the less money you will lose, and you may even make a small profit. When the second hand returned to 0 and the minute hand jumped to 30, Shen Tianfu was ready to pry open the lower limit first, and then look for opportunities. However, before he could give instructions to the traders, a swarm of lower limit orders came out. Just like stacked armor in the game. In the blink of an eye, there were 100 million more pending orders on the lower limit board. In less than 10 seconds, the closing order immediately turned into 500 million. Why are there so many? Didn't 1 billion escape yesterday? Grass. In the trading room, Shen Tianfu's mood collapsed. He started to get angry without any image, targeting everyone around him. Wasn't it Li Yuan yesterday? Which is today? Then what is he planning? In this position, he will definitely lose money. What is he planning? He slapped the table, looking like a male lion who had been driven out of his territory. He watched helplessly as the new guy had his own harem, and even his own children became his slaves. He was unwilling and angry, but he couldn't defeat the opponent at all. You even have to be provoked by the other party, your female companion is so cool. He would rather Li Yuan not lose money, because he was at a disadvantage from the beginning, failed to throw away the chips in his hand, and now lost more than Li Yuan. He didn't know how many times his mood had reversed in just over a day. Scattered small funds began to enter the market, and the number of orders was reduced, but looking at the transactions, it was clear that they were very small. Moreover, the number of orders above will increase all the time. If you don't have big funds, let alone pry the board open, it would be nice if you can prevent the closing funds from increasing. For others, A shares open for 4 hours every day. But for Shen Tianfu, the market was already closed 10 seconds after it opened. Looking back on the whole process, he seemed to have done nothing wrong. All the funds had been deduced and he would never lose money on it. What if, he was thinking if he ran away last Friday, would he have made a lot of money? Because all parties' funds were closed last Friday, even if he had 3 to 4 billion chips, there was still a chance that he could run away. And hitting it hard can still cause Li Yuan to suffer heavy losses. Why didn't you run away? It's greed. They are greedy and want to be greedy for the high opening or second board after the first board. Because they have too many chips in their hands, a few points can equal hundreds of millions in profits. There are obviously several opportunities to escape. So many cheap stocks were borrowed at the beginning, and they could all run away one after another on Monday, which is equivalent to making the private equity money out of thin air. That adds up to at least 7 or 800 million. Why don't you want 7 or 800 million? Why do you have to kill Li Yuan? And it is obvious that making money and killing Li Yuan can both be done at the same time. Can't fall anymore. It's not so much that he can't fall anymore, but it's better to leave him some way to survive. Today's limit dropped, and they lost nearly 400 million. The number of chips is small, so it is almost equivalent to the actual price. But there are too many chips, and a 20% or even 30% discount is required. They have already lost more than 1 billion. If there is another limit drop tomorrow, we will lose 2 billion. Lu Shangyuan encountered such an extreme situation. Today, Lianying Technology once again took the lead, with a loss of only 1.5 billion. Why can they lose so much this time? He was just greedy for one day, just one day. From earning 7.8 billion to losing 17.8 billion. How could such a huge reversal happen? He was completely in self-doubt. In confusion, the closing came. It's almost the same as yesterday. Except for the lower limit, no shares were traded at other levels. Near the close of trading, the transaction volume of Tianchuan shares was only 300 million, which was far behind compared with yesterday. However, the same plot emerged. In the last 3 minutes of bidding, another large amount of money entered the market and bought 300 million yuan. This is. Shen Tianfu stared at the screen as if he were returning to the scene. Is there a large amount of money gathering chips? Is there any hope for the future? One piece of good news and one piece of bad news. The good news is that someone violently accumulated funds in the late trading, and there is a high probability that there will be a big move next. The bad news is that the one who attracted the money was Li Yuan. Li Yuan needs to replenish ammunition. If you do this every day, you must add some at the closing stage. Otherwise, what will you do the next day? What to do this week? Adding another chapter today. Am I sensible? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 136. Li Yuan, let me tell you something. The old Wang who made tens of millions by analyzing your videos took the people in the group and started a private placement. On Wednesday morning, Li Yuan just got up and received news from Zhang Yuling. What private placement? It's called Along Capital, and it's already very large. They have at least 3 billion in capital, and they're registered in Zhangzhou. What happened in Zhangzhou? There are 20 or 30 private equity firms in Zhangzhou. Li Yuan is a public offering and has nothing to do with private placement. Private equity has quite high geographical requirements. After all, people who are familiar with each other usually invest in each other. Either they are issuing private placement products, but if the traders don't understand them, few people will buy them. They say that Zhangzhou is now the best place for private equity, because you have subverted some of the traditional models, and now people don't like you. After coming to Zhangzhou, you will naturally get huge advantages, but I don't know what the advantages are. Zhang Yuling is also a graduate student in finance and knows a lot of basic things. It's just that she's not very good at stock trading and her brain is not flexible. It's okay, just let them come. Doesn't the so-called innate advantage mean that you can be more shameless and thorough? The dirty work of private equity is not suitable for phone calls and online communication, but for offline plotting like a spy. After all, we are all a family here, and we all work together to make money and make a fortune. Actually, Wall Street is like this too, and they play bigger. Why is it said that every pore of capital is dirty? You can see half of it. But Lao Wang said that he has studied your trading techniques in depth. He also said that you made a lot of money on Lianiying technology, and the short sellers in it suffered heavy losses. If it were him, he would never give you a chance. Well, come on, come on. Is there such a good thing? He is worried that he has no opponent. Li Yuan also wants to do something big, and it will be easier to do it repeatedly in one ticket. I am very good at picking stocks every day, and I have to run away after just 1 or 2 days of market trends. There was originally no need to operate Tianchuan shares because the difficulty was too high. But it happened that the fundamentals were very suitable for ambush, so he chose it. From a pure profit perspective, Tianchuan shares do not have those things, and there are too many hold UPS in it. Be careful, that Lao Wang is very powerful. He has been analyzing the market from your videos before, and he has a high prestige in the hearts of hundreds of people. This time, the 50 richest people among them collected 3 billion, I'm afraid the purpose is also to compete with you. 50 people is the limit that a company can accommodate, not the limit for Lao Wang's fundraising. Maybe there will be other funds invested later, because at least more than 200 people in the original group followed Lao Wang, and only 1/3 are willing to stand on your side. Zhang Yuling has said this before, but Li Yuan said that they are all rich people with a net worth of several million, and have long been out of vulgar taste. He has no direct interests involved with those people, and it is normal not to stand on his side. But Zhang Yuling never recognized it. Those people made money from Li Yuan, and now they want to cause trouble for Li Yuan? Li Yuan replied, it's difficult to compete with me. I'm a public fund and have a wide range of positions. If something happens to 1 or 2 stocks, it won't affect the entire situation. But you are now very popular among the internet. Once your net worth drops, it will be a huge blow to Qingtian Capital. Why does Qingtian Capital succeed in the death track of public funds? It's because of Li Yuan's existence. He cleverly used the internet to create a persona for himself. This is something other public funds cannot do by spending hundreds of millions or even billions in advertising fees. Teacher Zhang, do you care too much about your students? I am standing as a friend. We're not friends. Okay, if I ask you one more thing from now on, I will be a dog. Zhang Yuling was so angry that he hung up the phone directly. Li Yuan went to wash up and prepare to go to the company. He was very grateful to Zhang Yuling for the information and some concern. But he kind of wants to escape, because when someone else gives something, he will first think about what he can give to the other person in return. After thinking about it, I realized that I couldn't repay him, so I simply refused the other party's kindness. When I came to the company, I first took a look at yesterday's data. 1.6741, at 3.96%. The main reason is that it lost almost 50 million on Tianchuan shares. If that money had not been lost and even generated some profits, with the current scale of 22 billion, the net worth would definitely exceed 4. The liquidity of the A-share market has improved slightly, at least a little higher than in his previous life. The main reason is probably that he, the butterfly, got involved, and many small directions began to deviate. He could hardly use future information as a reference. When he was working on a self-media account before, he referred to a lot of future information, otherwise the income would not grow so fast, and it would be impossible to catch every daily limit. Starting from trading public funds, all his operations are completely an extension of his self-awareness, and not a penny is earned by resting on his future credit book. As the size increases, the net worth will increase less and less. These are inevitable things that will happen, and he has long been mentally prepared. Wednesday is a good day. After he arrived at the trading room after 9 o'clock, he began to arrange some instructions in advance so that the traders could prepare first. Tianchuan shares spent 30 million during the bidding stage, and all the chips were put in as soon as the market opened. He now holds 400 million chips in Tianchuan shares. To put it bluntly, he just took 500 million profits to play in it. He doesn't care if he loses everything. Locking up the enemy's funds is the most important thing. However, in the past 2 days, he discovered that there was a stream of other funds on the market, which was quite strange. If you have the funds, join him. That is the so-called short position. But the other party is definitely not throwing his chips away. He took a look at the securities lending. The 4 billion securities lending scale of Tianchuan Co. Limited was considered to be extremely excellent originally. In this situation, securities lending was something that even a dog would not want. But after 2 consecutive declines, securities lending began to take off. It's not the people who move. It's quantification. The current securities lending quota is still 3.4 billion, which shows that quantification has not entered the market on a large scale. Because of the problem of trading volume, it is useless to enter the market now, and it will only occupy more funds. After all, borrowing 500 million securities today, and then borrowing securities again when the limit drops tomorrow, will only require a margin of 450 million. Now that the stock lending is done, there is no one at the bottom to take over, which is like playing a lonely game. Li Yuanyi didn't do much directing. It was just for the convenience of holding part of the chips, not for the purpose of raising the stakes. High probability quantification is waiting. When the big funds inside save themselves, they can use securities lending, and only then will someone pick up the chips they threw out. Li Yuan figured this out and observed 3 seconds of silence for the funds inside. How much does it cost to raise 4 billion in securities lending? The quantification program must have calculated the holding costs in advance. As long as there is a big movement on the market, it will rush in as soon as possible. Moreover, you are not greedy for quantitative funds. Generally, you will leave after only a dozen points. There is plenty of space below. I'll just smash it for 2 more days, nothing else has anything to do with me. Even if the limit falls today and the limit falls tomorrow, Li Yuan will lose less than 200 million in profit and still make more than 300 million in Tianchuan shares. As for how much others will lose, how does he know? Anyway, those people are just wishing for themselves. He didn't expect to attract quantitative funds. Wednesday is not a good day. It was a painful day for Shen Tianfu. The closed-door meeting last night made him itch with hatred. Lu Shangyuan is going crazy. He didn't dare to use the money at all, because positions were being liquidated every day and a large amount of margin was required every day. Once the margin call is not timely, you will be required to liquidate. No one can afford to be forced out. This means that the brokerage will take over Lu Shangyuan's account and buy back the stocks at any cost, no matter how high the price is. Lu Shangyuan also needs to bear the price. If it encounters a forced liquidation, Lianying Technology will not be allowed to have another 20 consecutive games. In another 20 consecutive games, Lu Shangyuan could lose the entire Shangyuan capital, which would cost him at least 10 billion. Even if he had a good background and lost so much money, those financial backers could still kill him. The same goes for Shen Tianfu. He is the leader of Tianchuan shares. If there is any loss, he will have to bear half of the loss. How can Tianfu Capital afford it? There is no doubt that it hit the limit on Wednesday. Shen Tianfu has already lost more than 700 million in Tianchuan shares. It was only a paper loss, but the actual loss had exceeded 2 billion. After all, the chips are worth 3.2 billion. At a 30% discount, that's just over 2 billion. From more than 4 billion to more than 2 billion, the loss will only be more than 2 billion, not less. Tomorrow, we must not drop the limit again. He looked tired and his eyes were haggard. I haven't slept well in the past 3 days. Even if I sometimes fall asleep because I am too sleepy, I will soon have nightmares. He is different from Lu Shangyuan. Lu Shangyuan might be able to save his life. And if he continues to lose money, he will definitely not be able to save his life. Moreover, he spent a lot of money to acquire Tiankai shares, and now he has no funds to continue operating. Once a chain reaction occurs, he will be beyond redemption. The closing this time was no different from the previous few days. However, in the late bidding stage, only 200 million were bought. It's been 3 days, and he's finally come to his senses. But it's a little late. He knew that someone was deliberately smashing the market, and the person who smashed the market was probably Li Yuan. The so-called accumulation of funds in the late trading is to have enough chips in hand to smash the market the next day. Otherwise, why the hell do things happen at the end of the day every day? If you really want to enter the market, why don't you want to take any of the cheap chips that are on the market during the day? If you want to break the situation, there is only one way, and that is to snatch the chips from Li Yuan's hand, and not give him the chance to continue to destroy the game. We should even grab it on Monday, isn't it just a few 100 million? No matter what the cost, these 3 lower limits will not be in vain. Even if there is a slight loss, the 4 billion will be released gradually. The closed-door meeting was held again on Wednesday night. They have never held meetings so frequently. Almost everyone has become a grasshopper on a rope. If the rope is broken, everyone will be missing arms and legs. There is a young man who keeps jumping up and down in front of me, saying how good he is at mountain climbing. He challenges my bottom line every day. I also want to climb mountains and challenge myself. Do you have any ideas? Shen Tianfu drank tea and said in a decadent tone. Someone said, we are not young anymore. Mountain climbing is a matter for young people. If we are not careful, we can easily be trapped in it for the rest of our lives. But if I don't climb mountains and stand on high points, I will never be able to see the most beautiful scenery in the city. Even if there are buildings hundreds of meters high, the scenery I can see is still very limited. The most important thing is that it will make that young man he will dance even more happily if he is convinced that I don't dare to climb a mountain. Although we are a bit older, as long as we support each other, don't hide our secrets, and share some of our bottom line experiences, we can always climb up. Everyone became silent. Silence is the theme tonight. But no one has a choice. In a desperate move, he took Li Yuan's bargaining chip and pried the board. A total of 1.5 billion funds were raised. Among them, Shen Tianfu will spend 700 million. Back home, when Shen Tianfu waited for 12 o'clock, he saw the net value of Qingtian mixed small and medium caps. 1.7415, add 4.03%. That kid made another billion. What kind of genius is this? Unconsciously, with the increase in net worth, the size of the entire Qingtian mixed small and medium cap market has reached 24 billion. In total, there are still close to 1 billion subscriptions every day. Just 2.5 weeks of work. He finally couldn't stand it anymore and slept soundly for 4 hours. Because he knew that today would be particularly difficult. After prying the board, he still had to fight with the funds on the market to try to reach an agreement. He would first pull up a few boards before talking about it. Anyway, it won't be worse than it is now, even if another billion is invested. There were so many chips that they didn't know what to do with them. Slowly waited until 9:20. He saw it during the collective bidding. It was still the same routine as the previous few days. He first used tens of millions of chips to hit the limit and opened the market, and then smashed it down hard the moment the market opened. The reason why not all of them were sold out during the collective bidding stage was probably to tease myself and make myself feel that it is not difficult to open the market today. In fact, I was actually fooled. He thought it would open on Tuesday. I thought it would be open on Wednesday. It's already Thursday, and it's still the same trick. After the market opened, yesterday's scene happened again. However, the value of the closing orders today is only 300 million. Shen Tianfu knew that this was probably all the bargaining chips Li Yuan had. Eat these 300 million in one bite first. He started giving orders. It's enough to eat these hundreds of millions. You can't violently raise it, otherwise you will kill your own funds. Once the price rises too much in a short period of time, the retail investors who came in yesterday will also run away. First accumulate strength at the bottom, try to reach an agreement with other funds, and then close the market in a very short period of time. They have the initiative to block the board at this position, and they can at least connect to the board tomorrow. Time passed by minute. By around 10 o'clock, the transaction volume of Tianchuan shares had exceeded 1 billion. Still playing back and forth at the lower limit. At first, Shen Tianfu didn't notice anything wrong. But something soon went wrong. How come you can still do so many transactions? After all calculations, the number of Tianchuan shares in circulation at this time was less than 9 billion. After falling to the limit for 4 consecutive times, the circulation value also fell. And they have nearly 4 billion in their hands, which is equivalent to controlling half of the market. As a result, 1 billion was used today and not even 2 gears were opened. What a joke! Are all the retail investors inside running away? Are you mentally ill? You're really losing money in this position, why don't you run away? After all, quantification is a bit too far away for them. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 137. Quantitative funds are controlled by programs and can be said to be algorithmic tools in the financial industry. However, they are not popular now and many people have not been beaten by quantitative funds. In a few years, when quantitative funds are rampant in the market, everyone will understand. Moreover, quantitative funds have great authority. Capital that can be used for quantification is not ordinary capital. It is very difficult for ordinary people to borrow securities, and it is almost impossible to obtain large amounts of securities. But for quantitative funds, these are not problems. They can use all rules to make money. Of course, quantitative funding also has drawbacks. They have no way to operate and can only wait passively. They will not take the initiative to make any market decisions. Once the data analysis shows that it is difficult for them to make money in the market, they will not take action. In these years, quantitative funds are not famous. The main reason is that the number of transactions is too few. There are few quotes that can meet their procedural standards. Li Yuan watched quantitative capital calmly feeding his enemy cakes in Tianchuan shares, and held a second of silence for that enemy. How courageous are you? It has changed hands for more than 1 billion yuan, and yet you are still buying it? Can you digest all the securities lending from quantitative funds? In the financial market, having more chips does not mean that it is useful, and having few chips does not mean that you cannot control the market. There is no unified formula that is guaranteed to make money. Now that he has withdrawn, he has a clearer view of the situation. It must be that the enemy has too many chips, so they have to pull the deal. Li Yuan didn't know this data before, but quantitative funds knew it. Therefore, if quantitative funds enter the market, they will definitely eat away a piece of meat. Compared with the hundreds of millions earned by quantified funds, the price for the enemy's promotion will be greater. Quantitative funds can spend another 3 billion, but they can't take it. If they realize that it is quantitative funds and still accept it, Li Yuan admires them for being a man. If he didn't realize that it was quantified funds, then Li Yuan could only say that he would not lose money. In fact, people and quantification are not on the same starting line, and quantification has greater authority. This is why some people let quantitative funds take the blame in the past few years, because they will not lose money in taking the blame. Although quantitative funds are not directly responsible for the lack of bull market in A shares, The crazy pumping of quantitative funds also accounts for a large part of the reason. It's not as fast as a machine to respond, and it's also been hit by dimensionality reduction in terms of authority. It's strange that it can make money. However, there are also examples of cutting quantitative funds from leaks, which is a very extreme operation. Because there is no need to be occupied by Tianchuan shares today, Li Yuan freed up 300 million and began to invest in other embraces. For your own physical and mental health, stay away from quantification. When the change of hands reached 1.2 billion, Shen Tianfu realized that quantitative funds had entered the market. But it was already too late. They had consumed nearly 1 billion in funds, and the other 200 million were taken from others. But there is no difference. After spending 500 million yuan, they have already entered the abyss. If they find out before then, there is still a chance of salvation. Shen Tianfu was unexpectedly calm today, no longer furious or hysterical. He quietly left the trading room and returned to his office. It was only half an hour after the market opened, but he had already given up struggling. Reviewing the whole process, it seemed that he had done nothing wrong, but the result was not only completely different from what was expected in advance, but they also had so many positions in their hands that they didn't even have the slightest initiative. He rarely gets killed when he is confused, but in Tianchuan shares, ever since he discovered that he had made a wrong judgment, he became confused and couldn't clearly see what was going on. Perhaps before, he always had a chance to turn the situation around. But after receiving 1 billion quantitative chips today, he knew that the chance of turning the situation around was completely zero. When he was destined to fail, he calmed down. He thought a lot, from a boy in a mountain village, from the first college student in a village in the 1990s, to a poor boy with patched clothes, he has come step by step to where he is now. He also benefited from the market trend in 2006. Although he suffered a lot of subsequent losses, it also established his position in Zhangzhou private equity. He also benefited from the bull market of the previous 2 years, which gave him higher ambitions in the future. Although the acquisition of Tiankai shares was risky, he felt that he had done nothing wrong from beginning to end. He has the confidence to operate Tiankai shares to a market value of 20 to 30 billion, making it the most important trade in his life. Because of his limited connections, he was never able to accumulate funds. Lu Shangyuan started private equity several years later than him, but his scale was twice as large as his. It's not like a public offering, there are public fundraising channels. There has been no new funding from his side for a long time. He needs to do something big to attract the attention of funds. Otherwise, unless his strength is incredible and he can earn more than 20 billion with more than 10 billion capital, breaking 20 billion will be beyond his reach in this life. The goal. In the office, I smoked more than a dozen cigarettes in a row. After calming down, he knew he was finished. Completely finished. Without funds to carry out the follow-up operations of Tiankai shares, billions of dollars will be wasted, and there will be no results at all in the short term. This time, Tianchuan shares will lose more than 1 billion or even 2 billion. There was absolutely no way he could make up for such a big hole. He took out his mobile phone and called Anna Shen. Nana, help me get Linlin's 10 million. I will give you an account, and you can transfer it directly into it when the time comes. After making the call, he reached out and rubbed his face. Everything is meaningless. The rewards that Anna Shen can bring to him are currently very limited, and there is no way to help him make up for such a big hole. So, I can only give up. Before, 10 million was not much to him. But now there are more, and at least it can be exchanged for more than 1 million US dollars. And the funds he has secretly transferred over the years only add up to 5 to 6 million US dollars. Foreign exchange controls are too strict, and he did not dare to make a desperate move before. With a net worth of more than 1 billion, he might not even be able to take away even a tenth of it. almost equivalent to zero. He began to take the initiative to contact some people and ask them to help exchange some dollars. He also knew that he couldn't make too much noise, otherwise the sponsors would realize it and wouldn't give him a chance to escape. After making arrangements, he even went to the trading room. The account was in a miserable state. Not to mention that nearly 2 billion in funds were locked, more than 4 billion were spent during this period, and the remaining several billion in principal suffered losses of more than 1 billion during this period. The entire Tianfu capital, in just half a month, was reduced to a point where there was no hope of recovery. Of course, no one else is any better than him. Today, Lianying technology has reached its daily limit again, which means Lu Shangyuan's losses have officially exceeded 2 billion. Not to mention how long it lasts. If there is another daily limit tomorrow and Friday, Lu Shangyuan will go completely crazy. The current situation may not be resolved next week. The other private equity funds are not large, ranging from 5 billion to 10 billion, and their losses this time are also around 1 billion. There are even public offerings to participate. At this moment, he realized the benefits of public fundraising. If he lost money, he would be fired at most, but he still had a high degree of freedom. Unlike those who do private equity, they have been coerced by the sponsor. When the market is good, even if you make a lot of money, it is possible to make 200 to 300 million a year. But want to get off? It depends on whether others agree. Although it is allowed to suffer a certain degree of loss when the market is not good, it should be less than others, and you have to find ways to earn it back in the future. Once you engage in private equity, you are no longer a free person. The stronger your ability, the more powerful those financial sponsors will give you. Because those financial sponsors will not let you leave one day, and will try their best to get some control over you. No. They will arrange it. They will arrange whatever kind of leverage is more threatening. I won't let you run away one day. He also had some information in the hands of his financial sponsors, but it was not because those financial sponsors were trying to tie him up, but because he took the initiative to get the funds back then. After all, if their control falls into the hands of those people, they will rest assured to put the funds here and let them manage it. There is not much time left for him. That evening, there was a closed-door meeting. There is no longer any reserve as before, no more caution as before. Everyone started to blame and curse hysterically. Lu Shangyuan, you are the one who asked us to work with you on Qingtian Capital. Now you have to give me an explanation. Shen Tianfu, were you causing trouble at the beginning? Do you know how much money we are losing now? How much capital we have used? Now a large amount of funds are locked up, and we have lost hundreds of millions in cash. How can I explain to my investors? If there is no result today, I will risk my life with you. If everyone could restrain themselves yesterday and still have a sense of luck, then today when quantitative funds did this, everyone's mentality exploded. Quantitatively, it has spent more than 1 billion or more to enter the game, and Tianchuan shares will not end well for a long time to come. Quantitative short selling is more terrifying than artificial short selling, and you can't even think of resisting. How can humans compare with machine programs? Those small private equity firms will collapse if they lose 5 or 6 billion. At this time, basically every company was losing hundreds of millions, plus more than 1 billion in locked funds. 1/3 of the entire private placement was just gone. I got a lot of junk chips in my hand. Lu Shangyuan's face was gloomy and he was speechless. Shen Tianfu said, everyone, calm down first. In terms of losses, Lu Shangyuan and I have suffered more losses than those sitting here. Besides, isn't it just quantitative entry? What do we have to be afraid of? At this time, the stock price of Tianchuan shares, it is already at a historical low. Either we can make 2 or 3 billion in quantification and go on our own, or we will waste away with quantification funds. When they repay the securities lending, this is our opportunity. The securities lending of more than 10 to 2 billion are also carrying the sedan chair for us. The power of. Shen Tianfu picked it up and said. Indeed, sooner or later, quantitative funds will buy stocks from the market to repay the securities lending, which will definitely increase the stock price. It's exactly the same situation as Lu Shangyuan is currently encountering. As long as they have enough funds, the quantitative side may have to lose money and cut their flesh. Wouldn't Lu Shangyuan not be able to get the chips now? The margin is being increased all the time, to more than 200 million a day. But to achieve this step, a prerequisite is needed. That is to get all the chips from Tianchuan shares, and also take over all the chips sold by quantitative capital securities, so that quantitative funds have no way to buy chips from the market. At that time, the stock price may even rise to 20 or 30 levels. The question is, will quant funds make such a mistake? They will monitor the trend of all chips, and when they realize that the floating chips in the market are lower than their own securities lending quota, they will take action. You said nicely, quantitative funding will give you that opportunity. Someone must be aware of this. Shen Tianfu said unhurriedly, so what if the quantitative funds respond quickly? We already have so many chips in our hands, and at most we will be cut off by another 2 to 3 billion by the quantitative funds. We will just slowly make market decisions in the future. Plug the whole of 2 to 3 billion. Tianchuan shares have such high activity, and funds will gradually participate in it. We are the largest bookmaker. After the quantitative funds leave the market, it is not up to us to determine how it will rise. Your face. Then what if quantitative funds are still going to be spent tomorrow? Just let them smash it. Don't drag us along if you want to die. In the evening, Anna Shen went home. There aren't many classes in senior year anyway. Dad, Linlin said that the 10 million won't arrive until next Monday. What? Oh, it's okay, let's go next Monday. Shen Tianfu's face looked ugly before, but soon returned to normal, looking calm and calm. Anna Shen asked, Dad, did something happen? No, I'm afraid that Li Yuan will jump over the wall in a hurry. He is almost at the end of the road now. If he asks Linlin to get the money back, it will be a big loss for us. Anna Shen felt something was wrong. Because the trend of Qingtian mixed small and medium caps has been very strong these days. Although today's net worth has not been released yet, their official website has released a net worth estimate, and today's net worth estimate exceeds 4 points. There are more and more funds, and the growth exceeds 4 points every day. Is this a dead end? But she didn't know the specific details. Dad, if we take these 10 million, Linlin will never be able to hold her head up in front of Li Yuan. If we are not short of money, I think. Shen Tianfu's expression changed. When did you start having this idea? Do you still want to leave 10 million to Li Yuan as a capital for his recovery? No, I have nothing to do with Li Yuan, it's just Linlin's side. Anna Shen quickly explained. All her actions were for profit. Since her father said that Li Yuan was about to collapse, how could she rush to send money to Li Yuan? It's just that the money is more important to Xu Yanlin. Xu Yanlin asked Li Yuan to get it, which is equivalent to owing Li Yuan. If she successfully becomes Li Yuan's girlfriend, the psychological pressure will not be so great. However, Li Yuan and Wen Yuxian have become very close recently, and they are even close to official announcement. When she asked Xu Yanlin for money today, Xu Yanlin was in a very low mood and was absent-minded for a long time. Although I finally agreed. When her father scolded her so harshly in front of her, she never saw Xu Yanlin so lost. She has feelings for this cousin. Shen Tianfu said, then don't worry about it. When we defeat Li Yuan, as long as Li Yuan comes to beg me, I will naturally give him money. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 138. Net worth will be updated at midnight on Friday and Thursday. 1.8143, add 4.18%. For the Christians in Qingtian mixed small and medium caps, the most enjoyable thing every day is to lead the rhythm in the comment areas of Li Yuan's major platforms. Because now, although the subscription limit for Qingtian mixed small and medium caps is limited, there are still a lot of new funds entering the market every day. They have experienced a surge of an average of 7 points a week, and now the visible decline in net worth is due to too much capital. Then, such an organization appeared inexplicably, which was privately called the Jihu Bureau. What the hell kind of junk fund is this? The better the market, the lower the net worth, right? Li Yuan, you go and form a boy band to debut. Funding is not something you can play around with. I'm so convinced. You're so lucky. You bought a bunch of stocks with daily limit. How come your net worth is so small? It's really a waste of good luck. If you leave it to other fund managers, it will be over 7 or 8 points a day. What I regret most is that I bought a fund like this in my life. When someone sends a screenshot of their position, it shows that today's profit is 20,000, and the principal of 300,000 is now more than 500,000, and the net profit is around 200,000. The comment section below immediately started to curse. What the hell is there to show for in your picture? You can't afford 3 dishes in your life, and you have to live on photos of yourself all day long. You bitch, are you the banker's agent again? Are you trying to defraud us of our money? Brother, this picture of yours is almost swollen. How many hands has it been passed on? Listen to my brother's advice and stop, you can't fool anyone. Young man, you are young, you have hands and feet, what can't you do, why come here to defraud? The Douyin comment section is okay, because there is a video of Li Yuan there, and many people will know what is going on after watching it. And you can't post pictures in the comments section there. However, when someone posts a video alone to show off, in a split second, hundreds of people will gather around to criticize, report, and a series of packages, and the video will be reported and removed from the shelves. And Zhang Yuling had just learned of the existence of such an organization. So, I went undercover. After getting to know them, she found that these people were simply crazy. Because they were among the first batch of people who bought it and were also loyal fans of Li Yuan, they bought 3 to 400,000. Now everyone's holding amount exceeds 60,000 to 700,000 yuan, and their daily income is 20,000 to 30,000 yuan. It doesn't matter what kind of bullshit job it is. These people inside have nothing to do now and just guard the fund every day. Of course, they knew that the more popular Li Yuan's Qingtian mixed small and medium caps became, the greater the dilution of their profits would be, so they joined forces to infiltrate the network. There are hundreds of people searching for keywords, watching videos, and reading news every day. As soon as I find it, I will immediately post the link in the group. There was no need for anyone to teach them a series of speaking skills. For their own benefit, everyone began to criticize from the bottom of their hearts. At first, Zhang Yuling thought it was Li Yuan's rivals who hired trolls. After all, the comment sections of many of Li Yuan's platform accounts were unsightly. Unexpectedly, it turned out to be one of our own. I don't know how many people who wanted to buy funds were dissuaded by this group of people. After all, not everyone knew how powerful Li Yuan was. Most people saw the information that day, and many channels could not find Qingtian mixed small and medium caps. Thinking of those negative comments, they had no desire to dig deeper. On all the major short video platforms, no one was seen posting their positions in Qingtian mixed small and medium caps. All of them were reported by these guys. Perhaps due to the limit, the power generated by these people is not as great as expected, but at least it can reduce the subscription funds of Qingtian mixed small and medium caps by several hundred million. It's simply heartbreaking. She decided to tell Li Yuan the news immediately. But suddenly she thought of what Li Yuan said to her before. Don't tell this guy. She even wanted to join this alliance called the Best Protector of the Far Gods. Anyway, you are also a fan. If you really want to be with Li Yuan, sooner or later you will become a fan. He scolded Li Yuan quietly, feeling inexplicably happy in his heart. Let that guy be careful. Then, she asked her grandfather to get a screenshot of the 360 million position. I invested 200 million half a month ago, and received 360 million half a month later. Anyway, grabbing money is definitely not that fast. I want to become the leader of the alliance to protect the soul today. Who agrees? Who opposes? Damn it, boss. Kneel down. I am willing to lose to the big brother, but the big brother needs to pass our assessment before he can officially become our leader. What test? The purpose of establishing this alliance is to make Yuan Shen work less hard. We fans want to use our own modest efforts to reduce some work pressure for Yuan Shen. There are a total of 50 related test questions. If you can answer them all correctly, it will be considered as an assessment. Pass. At that time, a big boss will lead us to work together to reduce the workload of Yuan Shen. Zhang Yuling. Jihu Bureau is just Jihu Bureau, why would you give yourself such a label? Filial piety is dead. Arriving at the company at 8:30 in the morning, Li Yuan took a look at the redemption list. He didn't want to see it at first, but there was a lot of redemption today, more than 12 million. On weekdays, there are only 1 or 2 million redemptions, but today the amount suddenly increased sharply. Then he saw Xu Yanlin redeem 10 million and ranked at the top of the entire list. He didn't know that Xu Yanlin had subscribed before. After all, there were too many subscription lists at the beginning and he didn't want to look at them at all. After taking a look, Xu Yanlin still had a position of 8 million. In other words, she bought all the 10 million she gave her into her own fund. Now she is redeeming 10 million yuan, or she wants to pay it back to herself again. The 8 million yuan she earned will be hers. Li Yuan has nothing to say about this. He can just take 10 million and leave. There is another possibility, that is, Shen Tianfu wants money, and she can only give it. Li Yuan can be sure that Tianfu capital must be included in the funds targeted at him this time. However, it did not prevent them from making preparations, so they had not asked for the 10 million from Xu Yanlin before. Now that he suddenly wants money, Shen Tianfu is afraid that he will lose too much. That's not right either. The more you lose, the less you should ask for these 10 million. Once he goes bankrupt, this 10 million may be his life-saving money for the rest of his life. Now that he wants to go through it, what is the point? When it goes bankrupt, it will be liquidated. Something is very wrong. You're not going to run away, are you? Li Yuan felt that it was unlikely. After all, Shen Tianfu has a net worth of more than 1 billion. Even if he loses money this time, he has no way to explain it to the investors. At worst, he can subsidize part of it himself, and the loss will be his. Can he still lose all his worth of more than 1 billion? If he takes a step back, it doesn't matter if he loses all his money. He still has a chance to make up for it. 10 billion of funds are not so easy to lose. Unless he loses more than 3 billion. Then it is possible to run away, because even if you don't die if you lose 3 billion, you will live in a very embarrassing way. Living in poverty and without dignity is better than running away. Neither Lianying technology nor Tianchuan shares seems to have caused him to lose so much. Anyway, it has nothing to do with you, just watch the show by yourself. If Shen Tianfu runs away, the 10 million will be considered as his travel expenses. After a while, Yu walked in angrily. Boss, those people are so shameless now. What's wrong? This was the first time Li Yuan saw Yu like this. Yu said, didn't those small distribution platforms block our fund code before? I just thought about calling on your major platform accounts to call on everyone to come to our official website or some big platforms to search for subscriptions. I don't know who they are. We hired trolls to use despicable means to attack those who had the intention to subscribe. And no matter how we block them, their accounts seem to be endless. If anyone says something nice about us, they will be scolded. They also reported all our videos on related topics to be removed from the shelves. Now fewer and fewer people understand our Qingtian capital, and several of our accounts have been blocked. Li Yuan. Are the Navy so rampant now? Reported and blocked all the accounts certified by your company? Indeed, the funds for subscription have become less and less recently. There were 1.6 billion on Monday, but only 600 million were left yesterday. Yu said angrily, I went to call the police, but it turned out that those accounts did not have real name authentication at all, and they can't be caught now. They are obviously professional trolls. Li Yuan felt that Yu was almost as angry as a pufferfish, so he quickly said, don't be angry, Manager Yu. These are just small things. Anyway, I plan to close the subscription channel next Friday. This is not bad now. Yu opened his mouth, huh? Close the subscription channel. There's nothing I can do. I can't trade anymore. I have too much money. Then should we apply for a new fund product? With your reputation, boss, if there is no limit, you can definitely raise tens of billions of funds. Those are all the company's achievements. Li Yuan waved his hand, when our company is starting up, what we need most is reputation. What I can't do, I won't do it for now. As long as we can maintain our reputation, the money will be ours sooner or later. If we ruin our reputation, we will earn a few months' profit. How much quick money can you have? Yu looked like he had been taught something. After Li Yuan finished speaking, he immediately said with emotion, the boss is still thinking too far, but I am short-sighted. Li Yuan. If Yu really had this idea, he would have applied for a new fund product long ago. Seeing that he had limited the subscription amount, he rarely said such words. Li Yuan seriously suspected that when Yu said he wanted to apply for a new fund product, he had already thought about how to flatter him later. Grass. This greasy workplace. After looking at the time and seeing that the market was about to open, Li Yuan said, Manager Yu, don't worry about online trolls. The company is about to be established for a month, and the recent performance is also good. Let's arrange a dinner for the company's employees. And during the National Day holiday, each person will be given a travel subsidy of 5,000 yuan. Okay, I'm going to write a charter right away. Yu was very leisurely, because there was nothing in the company that he needed to worry about. So he began to think of ways to gain some visibility for the company and be responsible for managing Li Yuan's various platform accounts. Except for Duyan's account. The more you manage, the angrier you get. Don't let him catch those Navy soldiers. If he does, he will blow their heads off. At 9:30, the market officially opened. Li Yuan glanced at Tianchuan shares. Quantification is all evil, how can you bear to hit another limit? Don't you have any conscience? I'm embarrassed to hit him so hard. Oh, you are so heartless, forget it, haha. Seeing that the quantification was still smashing, with a total of 500 million in orders, Li Yuan knew that his enemy had a lot of chips. After all, quantification will definitely be calculated in advance. If the other party does not have many chips, just smash them a little and slowly boil them in warm water for a few days. The chips on the market will naturally start to increase. In this way, quantification can buy stocks to repay the securities lending, and then calmly exit. Could it be that Shen Tianfu really went too far this time? After seeing the quantitative entry, just throw up your hands and surrender? Oh, you are so useless. Unfortunately, this stock is not very good. No matter how much Shen Tian loses again, Li Yuan has no chance to make profit. Because the early profits in this stock were hit too hard, many people were trapped. The company itself is worth 5 billion. After it was listed, the stock price tripled due to the 4 consecutive board transactions. The transaction volume that day exceeded 10 billion. The funds that came out that day have already made away all the 5 billion worth of the company itself. What is left behind? It's all bubbles. Even if the stock price drops to 1 yuan now, it is meaningless. The stock itself has no value, and the company is like a bird, with no room for rivals. In other words, if he wants to make money, he doesn't know who to make it from. Follow quantitative short selling? Not to mention that it is a public offering now, and it is unlikely that he will borrow securities. Even if he can raise 100 million, he will not make much money. There may be a sudden change in the market, and there will be a backlash. Oh, Lianying technology is still blocking the board. 11 consecutive games. The short-selling funds inside have suffered the same crime. But I am long. He's not selling it anyway. If one day I really can't seal the board anymore, I might add a little more money and get 2 more boards. It doesn't matter if he loses a little bit. If he loses 10 million, others will lose 300 million. The world's richest man came, and he dared to exchange it with him like this. Lianying technology probably never thought that such a good thing could happen. A large number of short orders were blocked, and their stock prices could not stop for no reason. The short sellers would help them seal the market without even using much funds. No closure? There are plenty of people willing to come in and grab funds. Li Yuan can now earn 140 million a day in Lianying technology. The net value of the fund can exceed 4, all thanks to Lianying technology. At the close of trading at 3 p.m., Qingtian mixed small and mid caps, and its capital scale successfully exceeded 30 billion. It took Li Yuan 15 trading days to set a record again. Everyone in the company is very happy. But some people are not happy, and that is Jihu Bureau. Their hearts hurt so much. The new leader doesn't seem to be very reliable. Apart from having a lot of money, his ability to do things is really average. After the market closed, Li Yuan received a call from Zhang Yuling. Li Yuan, I helped you dismantle an organization that was targeting you, why don't you thank me properly? Li Yuan was a little confused. What are you talking about? You can't be so petty, right? Woof woof woof, are you satisfied now? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 139. How do you dismantle them? After Li Yuan heard about the Jihu Bureau, he immediately became interested. Those people are quite talented. Zhang Yuling said proudly, that's not easy. I became their leader, and then began to divide their attention so that they could not fight in a systematic way. After all, this kind of organization relies entirely on the leadership of the boss, and even if the boss runs away, if they go astray, won't they become more and more useless? Are you, a college teacher, so free? Hey, what do you mean? Are you blaming me for being nosy? No, I'm not afraid of affecting your work. Why didn't I hear it? Then I'll treat you to dinner tonight. Hey, okay, you still have a conscience. Li Yuan. In fact, he is very interested in the Navy. The so-called Jihu Bureau obviously has professional guidance, otherwise you would not have called the police and there would be no clues. Such talents are exactly what he needs. Whose world will belong to the future? The world of Navy. The higher the level of Navy, the stronger the effect will be. Of course, we must not take the route of slander, let alone malicious slander. That's illegal. What about another way of thinking? If a person gets mixed reviews online, many people will subconsciously think the bad side. If a person praises someone online, it will also make people feel uncomfortable. But if a person is criticized by everyone on the internet, then people will want to find out whether this person has any merits. This actually belongs to the sinful heart. In fact, the evolution of Navy is very fast. So far, many Navy are still at the level of touting their own and slandering others, and have fallen into the inferior position. As for the group Zhang Yuling met, although they didn't do things authentically, they could just make a living. And they can be regarded as capturing the essence of the Navy. If you want to suppress a certain brand, just brag without thinking. We don't have any patents on what you are bragging about, and you are still primitive people. Or don't look at what you are boasting about, but you have won another industrial pearl. In fact, you can't even make the gasket inside the lighter. The purpose of the Navy is to ruin the popularity of passers-by. However, given that some people were slapped in the face too many times before and were asked to reflect too much, everyone is now awakened and makes them want to vomit when they see such nonsense. Li Yuan is not afraid of being scolded. The more negative comments he makes, the stronger the effect will be in the future. This is called reverse word-of-mouth shaping. As for those who can really be fooled by the Navy, they are not his target customers. He has experienced severe beatings by the Navy for many years. The entire internet is almost full of smoke and smoke. It is impossible to watch a video seriously. It is all about provocation, reflection, and mindless boasting. I have to go watch the military training at 7 o'clock. How about we go eat now? Zhang Yuling is relatively relaxed during the day, because the military training lasts long and the students have nothing to do. But it gets busier in the evenings, which are basically activities for freshmen. In the military training venue, the class teacher still has a lot of tasks. Okay, I'll drive directly to school and eat at the Swaywan restaurant. Is this understanding of me? No more, just in the Swaywan restaurant, I'll wait for you there. Zhang Yuling quickly hung up the phone. Li Yuan took one look at today's net worth and left the company. 1.8911, add 4.23%. It all depends on the help of the veterans at Lianying Technology. The third week has officially come to an end. Shen Tianfu was stuck at home. He did almost nothing today, just not wanting people to see that he had the intention of running away. He is waiting for the 10 million to arrive on Monday. But just after the closing, I was still called to the door. The person who came here was the spokesperson of one of his investors. Because he had been paying close attention to Tianfu Capital's capital operations, he knew that there were some problems in the company. Shen Tianfu looked at the middle-aged man in his 40s and wearing gold-rimmed glasses in front of him and said, "Steward Pang, what brought you here today?" The man with glasses smiled gently and said, "Don't be nervous, Mr. Shen. I just came to take a look at the company as requested by the boss. The company has indeed encountered some troubles recently. On the one hand, the market conditions are not good, and on the other hand, the price paid for the acquisition of Tiankai shares is too high. I have explained these to the bosses. Then we suddenly lost hundreds of millions this week. Can Mr. Shen tell us about the situation? I can also have an explanation with the boss." Well. Shen Tianfu took a deep breath, first invited the man with glasses to sit next to him, and then said, "This is a mistake made by me. The original intention was to make a sniper attack with several private equity firms in Zhangzhou. Unexpectedly, I was targeted by quantitative funds, and then I was beaten for several days." He would not admit that he lost to Li Yuan, but would only say that quantitative funds were causing trouble. The man with the eyes always had a calm expression and said comfortingly, "These are all normal. Losing to quantitative is not a shame. The bosses can't afford the losses. I believe that with Mr. Shen's ability, it will not be a big problem to turn the situation around." Shen Tianfu could only smile and say, "Yes, Yes, even if I really lose hundreds of millions this time, I am confident that I will be able to come back next time. He was very aware of the man with the eyes in front of him. He seemed to be an easy person to get along with, but in fact he was the one who attacked the most ruthlessly. After all, it was not convenient for those investors to show up, so the matter was entrusted to the man with glasses. Shen Tianfu seriously suspected that the other party had noticed something, so he came here to give himself a beating today. He thought that many things had been done flawlessly, and he had not exposed any flaws. Now it seems that it is not necessarily safe. After all, those backhands have been arranged for too long, and it is possible for them to be monitored for so many years. The man with bright eyes said with a smile, "That's good. Mr. Shen will work hard and strive to achieve the previous planned goals as soon as possible. The bosses will not treat you badly." Shen Tianfu was confident, without the bosses, I, Shen Tianfu, would not be where I am today. Butler Pang will give the bosses a message and tell them to keep their hearts in mind. I will do everything possible. That's good, I'll leave first and talk to the bosses. The man with eyes stood up, patted Shen Tianfu on the shoulder, and left with a smile. Butler Pang, walk slowly. Shen Tianfu wiped the sweat from his forehead, even though the air conditioner in the room had not been turned off. It is difficult for normal people to feel the feeling of approaching death, because in most of the things they engage in, there is no condition for people to kill you at all costs. But what Shen Tianfu does is different, and even what those private equity firms in Zhangzhou do is different. When it comes to money, it's billions, or even tens of billions. What's the point of risking a few lives for this money? He was still hesitating whether to run on Monday. If he got the 10 million from Xu Yanlin today, he would run away in the middle of the night. However, not long after the market closed, he was blocked at home. He had every reason to suspect that if he dared to run away tonight, he would have no chance to see the sun tomorrow. Before he could recover, his cell phone suddenly rang. He glanced at the number and frowned. After the call was connected, he scolded, "Didn't I tell you not to call me if you have nothing to do?" A woman's voice came from inside, and she said in a somewhat anxious tone, "A few people came to the house just now. They said they were your friends and took Xiao Luo away." "What?" Shen Tianfu broke into a cold sweat. "They said they would take Xiao Luo out for a week. Did you offend someone?" Shen Tianfu's face was gloomy, and then he said, "No, I forgot to tell you before. It happened that a few of my friends were going abroad and wanted to meet Xiao Luo, so I told them the address. Don't worry, Xiao Luo will be there in a few days. Luo is back." Shen Tianfu hung up the phone directly. It seemed as if all the strength had been drained from his body, and he collapsed on the sofa. A mouse cannot make any waves under the eyes of an owl. He doesn't want to be treated like a dog, but he is actually a dog. As I said before, I will believe in myself. Is that what you believe? It is clear that he should reverse the situation next week. If he does not reverse the situation, his son will no longer be wanted. The question is, where will he turn? So much money was locked up that Tianfu Capital didn't even have 300 million in cash that could be withdrawn. This was what he saved after discovering that the other party was quantified funds. If he still had cards in his hand, he wouldn't want to run away. He knew that if he continued, there would be no results and he would only become more and more passive. Now the attitude of those investors is very obvious: even if they die, they have to endure it. If their money is gone, Shen Tianfu will pay for it with the lives of his whole family. Want to run away? That is impossible. He took out his mobile phone again and called Anna Shen. Go home, as soon as possible. The only one who can save his family now is Li Yuan. He didn't know if Li Yuan had the ability to fight against quantitative funds, but this was the only hope. The only way for Li Yuan to take action is either Xu Yanlin or Anna Shen. Because he has no other choice, Xu Yanlin is not even a card in his hand now. At most, it counts as half a card relying on family ties. After waiting at home for about an hour, Anna Shen returned home. That's the downside of being too far from home. But he never thought about buying a house in the city center, where he would be more restricted. Anna Shen didn't know why her father suddenly called her home. Have you been in contact with Li Yuan recently? After Shen Tianfu said this, Anna Shen was stunned. Because last week she asked if she wanted to have contact with Li Yuan, and her father said there was no need for contact. Yesterday, he said that there was no need to take the initiative to contact Li Yuan, as Li Yuan would beg to come over soon. I don't. She rarely goes to school now and spends most of her time in the apartment where Xu Yanlin lived before, helping Xu Yanlin take care of the cat. Because Xu Yanlin has to undergo military training for 2 consecutive weeks and has no time to come back to feed her. So what have you been doing lately? I have a cat. Anna Shen never dared to lie to her father. Shen Tianfu became inexplicably angry. Raising a cat? Do you know your identity? At this time, how can you have the time to raise a cat? Anna Shen. What can she do? She originally wanted to enter the entertainment industry, but her father withdrew his investment, and now she can't get many resources. She even has no exposure online. Since she was already a senior, there were no courses at the school. The students were all thinking about internships. Plus, if she showed up at school, people would gossip about her, so she didn't want to go to school. It's nothing more than occasionally participating in gatherings in the Zhangzhou circle, but it's good to have such gatherings once a month, but it's impossible to have them every day. Dad, is there anything you want me to do? She didn't dare to be angry, and she had no right to be angry. Shen Tianfu said with a sullen face, I have a sum of money that is trapped, and currently only Li Yuan can help me get out of it. Contact Li Yuan right away. No matter what the cost, no matter what, you must convince him to help next Monday. What? Dad, my relationship with Li Yuan is at loggerheads. It's almost impossible to repair it in just a day or two. And Li Yuan doesn't even help Linlin, so I will definitely find him. Anna Shen thought that by explaining the situation truthfully, her father would consider the reality. After all, she really couldn't do this request. But he never expected that Shen Tianfu would become even more irritable after hearing these words. He directly shouted loudly, this is something you should consider. Do you want me to teach you how to do it? I have trained you for more than 20 years, and you can't even do this little thing well. Anna Shen. It's obviously you who said it, Li Yuan is not important. Obviously she had a chance to talk to Li Yuan last week. Even if she couldn't repair the relationship, she could at least ease it. Even yesterday you said you were waiting for Li Yuan to come and beg you. Suddenly you asked me to take care of Li Yuan, and you asked Li Yuan to help you. How can anything be so easy in this world? Shen Tianfu also seemed to realize that his tone was a bit harsh, so he softened it a little and said, Nana, this matter is really important. It is related to the survival of Tianfu capital. If it can't be resolved before next Monday, everything will be over. Our family, everything will be destroyed, and everything we have will become a fleeting thing. For the sake of the overall situation, you should suffer a little. Anna Shen's mood did not fluctuate much, but she asked instead, Dad, I am willing to do my best for family matters. But with Li Yuan, I have a deep conflict with him, and he is also very prejudiced against me. Even if I knelt down and begged him, but he wouldn't agree. What about your appearance? What is the use of those things I taught you? Can't you even use your most useful advantages? Faced with Shen Tianfu's scolding again, Anna Shen's face showed fear. Dad, if Li Yuan wants it, do I have to give it to him? You should have given it a long time ago. You should have been pregnant with Li Yuan's child a long time ago. Don't forget that Tianfu capital will be yours in the future. You still don't know who can help you. When a father said such words to his daughter personally, Anna Shen understood. My father is indeed desperate. Even though his father said a lot of inconsistent things, it was completely different from his previous style. Even though there are too many doubts in it. But she had no choice. Before next Monday, if you can't deal with Li Yuan, don't come back. I've destroyed Tianfu capital and I won't even leave it to you. Shen Tianfu directly said harsh words. Over the years, he has gradually cultivated Anna Shen's expectations for Tianfu capital. He does not believe that Anna Shen can let go of Tianfu capital. After all, taking charge of Tianfu capital, her social status will directly increase in several dimensions. For so many years, hasn't she been pursuing fame and fortune? I see. Anna Shen replied in a low voice. Shen Tianfu said, remember, no man in the world can refuse you lying on the bed. Anna Shen did not respond to the sentence, but just said, then I'll leave first, and I will find a way to contact Li Yuan later. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 140. Li Yuan and Zhang Yuling had a friendly exchange of ideas about the Navy. Referred to as waterways. He explained that he really couldn't handle that much money. Even if he limited the subscription amount, there was still too much money. He even said that he spends 10 hours a day picking stocks, and he has to review the market for 10 hours after the market closes. Zhang Yuling discovered the bug in his words. It was impossible for Li Yuan to do nothing else 24 hours a day. Apart from stock selection, trading, and review, there was not a second left in the 24 hours. He probably used an exaggeration. In fact, it is reasonable to think about it. Why can Qingtian mixed small and medium caps stand out in the entire financial market? There is nothing outstanding about Li Yuan's company employees. The only explanation is that Li Yuan is not only talented, but also puts in unimaginable efforts. He understood what Li Yuan meant. The so-called purpose of the Jihu Bureau was hid by mistake. And Li Yuan's words were full of hints. Is the scale of your base unit too small? Should you expand the scale while ensuring that it doesn't fall below the line? Is it okay to even cross the line a little? He won't report the crime. Zhang Yuling did feel Li Yuan's fatigue. Actually, even though you are young, you should also pay attention to your health and reduce some pressure on yourself. You don't have to make so much money for Christians every day. It is understandable for you to be lazy occasionally. After dinner, Zhang Yuling suddenly said this. Li Yuan almost suspected that Zhang Yuling had poisoned the food. After all, when a person is about to die, his words are kind. Teacher Zhang, did you secretly have a child with someone? What? It's so lenient. I haven't been a mother for a few years, so I don't have such a serious sense of management. Zhang Yuling. Holding the chopsticks tightly, she felt that she could no longer hold back. When they were talking about something, Li Yuan was normal. But if he's just a little off, he seems to be a psychopath. I have been treating him well in the past few months, but every time I was struck speechless by him. Don't eat it. She put down her chopsticks and left the restaurant directly. Li Yuan slowly cleaned the battlefield as if nothing had happened. After eating, he paid the bill, 99 yuan. When I returned to my residence, the room was empty. I have lost a lot of expectations after returning home recently. The house is too big and living alone is quite boring. Even if Lu Hao comes back, he will not come to live here, so he will have to live alone for a long time. He took a look at the schedule for the 2 days of the weekend. Tomorrow I will shoot a video with Gu Dongsheng and the others. The script is ready. Gu Dongsheng, who specializes in luxury, would visit a small noodle shop and have a beautiful proprietress. The background of the proprietress is that she dropped out of high school, her parents were ill at home, and she managed a small noodle shop by herself. He was an old classmate with Gu Dongsheng. After arriving, he seemed a little embarrassed and at a loss, showing a certain inferiority complex and a secret love deep in his heart that could not be calmed down for a long time. Li Yuan knows very well what netizens like to see. Eat melon, emotional gossip. The noodle shop proprietress is already a new signee under Jushin Media, and the price is very cheap. This time Li Yuan's goal is to harvest 20 million traffic from the entire network. If the noodle shop owner has that ability, she may arrange more interactions in the future. At present, it is just a pawn to increase Gu Dongshen's traffic. If he doesn't have the ability later, he will give up directly. Anyway, the two parties signed a contract. Not only was there a reward of 30,000 yuan for this matter, but there was also a contract signed by the new person. Once she dared to breach the contract, she would pay a huge price. Besides, except that he and Gu Dongshen were not classmates and had no crush, the other stories were all true. The company's Matrix account has been set up, and the number of Matrix accounts serving Gu Dongshen is as high as 600. As long as the filming goes smoothly, this topic is guaranteed to be a hot search for at least 2 days. It doesn't matter if it's money or not, the main reason is that those people want to poach Gu Dongshen, and the price they offer is too low. He had to increase Gu Dongshen's worth and wait for the company to open up warehousing channels. In the second half of next year, he would be able to eat the first bite of meat. After 2 years, live streaming will become very popular, but in the first 2 years, it is really profitable. Jushin Media will be almost ready to go public the year after tomorrow. Listing is the beginning of everything. I was just about to take a shower and lie down when I suddenly received a message. It was sent by Xu Yanlin. Senior, can you please help me feed Dabai? My cousin said that she has something to do today and can't go. Dabai hasn't eaten all day. I'll go later. I don't want to take a bath anymore. I'll pet the cat for a while first. Li Yuan knew that the military training would end at 9:30, and when he returned to the dormitory, he would have to check at 10:30, so Xu Yanlin couldn't come out. It will be much better after the military training is over, and the management will not be so strict. Thank you, senior. You are welcome. If Xu Yanlin didn't tell her about the 10 million yuan, he wouldn't ask. At worst, in another 20 years, we can just leave according to the contract. In this world, no one should take anyone too seriously, and no one can live without anyone. In the dark room, I could only hear the cat next to me making some noises from time to time. Anna Shen was lying on the bed. If you turn on the light and lift the quilt, you will find that she is wearing nothing. She knew that Xu Yanlin only had one friend, Li Yuan, so she just sent a message to tell Xu Yanlin that she had something to do and couldn't go back today. Before leaving, she forgot to put cat food for Dabai. At this moment, she received a reply from Xu Yanlin, saying that Li Yuan had agreed to come. She was relieved, as long as it was Li Yuan who came. She tried to relax herself and filtered through her mind what her father had said recently. It's full of contradictions. She knew that her father was sniping at Li Yuan, and she also understood some of the unspoken rules of private equity. I was so confident, as I said before, and even on Thursday I didn't care. There happened to be a big change of attitude on Friday. In A shares, market behavior is relatively slow, and it is probably impossible to achieve this kind of reversal in one day. But why did his father say so confidently on Thursday? Li Yuan has been making money, which means that sniping has no effect. Even if the winner is decided today, there should have been signs before. She didn't know what happened to her father, and she even forced herself to take this step. She also knew that sooner or later she would have this day. I just didn't expect it to come so quickly. She even thought that as long as she worked hard, she could avoid reaching this point. After all, as long as her value was high enough, she could accomplish many things without giving up her last dignity. But obviously there is no chance. About 20 minutes later, she heard the sound of pressing the password from outside. At this moment, her heartbeat was racing to the extreme. Close your eyes and pretend you are asleep. Someone walked in. The lights were turned on. Even though I closed my eyes, I still felt it was very dazzling. But there was no movement from her. She heard the visitor's footsteps pause for a moment, probably because he saw herself. A few seconds later, she heard some movement from the cattery again. The cat seemed very happy. But the whole time, that person never came to the bedside. She opened her eyes slightly and took a look. Li Yuan was sitting next to the cattery, petting the cat with a look of enjoyment on his face, and smiling from time to time. He didn't look at himself at all. The room wasn't that big to begin with, and the bathroom was only about 20 square meters. She could only wait patiently. After all, she couldn't wake up on her own initiative. Once she woke up on her own initiative, she would no longer be qualified to negotiate terms with Li Yuan. In this way, about 20 minutes passed, and Li Yuan finally got up and came to the bedside. She felt her body get cold, and the quilt was lifted to a corner, and the air conditioning in the room came in. She knew exactly what Li Yuan was looking at. Looking at her final bottom line. Even with her eyes closed, she could feel it. In other words, the picture made up in the mind is very close to reality. Suddenly, she felt that the other person had lifted up the quilt and then put it down. It's not the kind that's covered directly, but put aside. This means that the other party is going to take action. Then, she felt something touch her. It didn't look like a hand or anything else. Somewhat hard. Suddenly, a tingling sensation came, making her frown. Tisk tisk, I didn't see it before. Li Yuan made a sound for the first time. A scene that made Anna Shen break out in a cold sweat appeared because she heard Li Yuan's voice was not in front of her. She opened her eyes suddenly. Then she saw Li Yuan sitting not far away, holding a clothes drying rod in his hand and looking at her with a smile. She sat on the bed and subconsciously picked up the corner of the quilt and held it in front of her. But the hand holding the corner of the quilt didn't have much strength. She lowered her head and said in a very humble tone, Li Yuan, can you give me a chance? Li Yuan also put down the clothes drying pole and said, what chance do I have? Give you a chance to call the police? What kind of society is it now? Are you still using this trick? No, I want to ask you to save Tianfu Capital. As long as you can save Tianfu Capital, I can meet any of your conditions. Li Yuan laughed, stop being ridiculous, okay. Are these the conditions you are referring to? Then your conditions are really cheap. From my perspective, you are only worth 3,000 yuan. Li Yuan has always admitted that Anna Shen is the best in appearance among the people he meets. He just took a look at her figure and found that it was one size larger than he thought. But save Tianfu Capital? She, Anna Shen, doesn't have such a big face. Except for what his parents ask him to do, he will seriously consider it and try to overcome it even if there are difficulties. Others have no right to ask him to do anything. Not even Zhou Ranran. Anna Shen didn't dare to look up at Li Yuan, lowered her head and said, I know I had a lot of misunderstandings about you before, which caused a very bad feeling for you. But this time I really came with the attitude of begging you, if you don't believe me, you can verify your identity. I'll take a shit test and leave my fingerprints, and you can call the police, right? Li Yuan's cell phone was recording. Anna Shen's trick was useless to him. But it was the first time in my life that I encountered such a thing, and it was so rare. Is this the so-called business war? If you lose, you will cede territory to pay compensation, offer gold, silver, jewels, wine and beautiful women? What will it take for you to believe me? Dignity and everything else were all lost the moment she took off her clothes. So at this time, she is just for purpose. I just said, it's only 3,000 yuan. How about I spend it at the club? Li Yuan's words were not only humiliating, but also trampling. Anna Shen thought of the furious Shen Tianfu again. The words he said to himself were like an ultimatum. To be honest, she has not done anything useful for Tianfu capital in recent years. After all, he was young, had little power, and had no access to real big things. She didn't think too much and said decisively, "Okay, 3,000 is 3,000. Then you are really cheap. I think many people pay 5,000. Well, I'm cheap and worthless in front of you." Anna Shen knew that Li Yuan wanted to vent his emotions, so she catered to him. "Anyway, my life is only worth using this time." With the ultimatum, she has only one choice. Only by letting Li Yuan achieve his goal can he talk to himself. Li Yuan suddenly slapped his thigh and said, "Forgot, I didn't bring any money." "You can transfer money." "Are you kidding? Who does this kind of thing without cash transaction?" "Then I can do it on credit, or even for free." "That's even worse. If you should save and spend, I can take advantage of everything else. I won't take advantage of even a penny of this kind of hard-earned money. You wait here, I'll go outside to get cash." After Li Yuan finished speaking, he stood up and walked outside. Anna Shen stood up and wanted to stop Li Yuan without caring about anything. Because she knew that if Li Yuan left, he would not come back. She lowered her head, kneeling on the ground and hugging Li Yuan's legs. "You give me a chance, okay? Just think of me as apologizing to you for my previous behavior. We don't need to talk about other things. Today, just think of me as atoning for myself." There was a cry in her voice. Li Yuan used his elbow to lift Anna Shen's chin, and then slowly pushed her away. "Not to mention whether your approach is effective or not, you have betrayed Xu Yanlin's trust in you. Do you know that?" After throwing Anna Shen away hard, Li Yuan opened the door and walked out. Anna Shen was unable to chase her, unless she wanted everyone outside to see it. Anna Shen staggered, and before she could get up, Li Yuan could no longer be seen. She sat on the floor, clasping her knees with her hands, her body twitching. At 9:30, Xu Yanlin, who had finished her military training, had just returned to her dormitory and took out her mobile phone. "I was supposed to prepare to take a shower, and around 10:30 there was a roll call, and someone even came to check my bed." But when she saw a message sent to her by Anna Shen, she was completely confused. She had been waiting for the opportunity to explain to Li Yuan properly after the military training, and then do her best to repay everything she owed Li Yuan. As a result, his cousin suddenly said sorry to him. Did she tell herself that she lied to herself? In fact, she didn't leave at all. She specifically asked herself to call Li Yuan over for the purpose of meeting Li Yuan. The purpose is to ask Li Yuan to do something? And then you provoked Li Yuan? She was trembling all over, never expecting such a situation to happen. He didn't have time to question Anna Shen now, but took the phone and ran outside. "Xu Yanlin, where are you going? The director will come over after work to check your bed." A girl in the dormitory shouted. But Xu Yanlin didn't seem to hear it.